Are you thinking of the 28th of March?
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. And you could have picked any date of birth, you could have picked any star sign. And when I sit down with somebody and I meet them for the first time, that's exactly how I reveal the exact day and month that they were born. It's cool, right? You can
Like,
see why I don't need
What
to use the billet.
So what you just saw there was Lloyd Barnes freaking out. And you're going to see a full performance in a bit of my special guest today, Pete Turner, absolutely blowing mine and Lloyd's mind over Zoom. Now, you're going to see that in a bit. But first of all, we've got to get there. And I have to introduce this man. Now, he is no stranger to Magic TV. This is probably the third interview, maybe the fourth interview I've done with him. He is, as far as I'm concerned, the world's leading expert when it comes to anything to do with mentalism. He is basically one of the top consultants in the world. If you want to have something done right, you go to this man. He has changed the game again and again and again. And he's just literally thrown the rule book out and bought out, what many people are saying is the definitive guide to Propless Mentalism. We're going to talk about that in a bit. But let me introduce him first of all. He's no stranger. He is absolutely incredible, a legend as far as I'm concerned. Mr. Pete Turner. How you doing, Pete? You all right, mate?
Amazing. Thank you for having me back on. Quite an intro.
Dude, it's true, though. You're amazing. Every single time that you come on this channel, you show me something that blows me away. And we were on with Lloyd. We were filming something else for a different project with Lloyd. And you were like, let me show you something before I do this interview with you. And then you proceeded to spend about 20 minutes off the cuff just destroying me and Lloyd with some of the most amazing direct mentalism I've ever seen. And we're going to show that full clip a little bit later on. But a lot of what you did is what people would consider propless mentalism, which we're kind of going to get into in a bit. But man, that was impressive. I mean, so impressive. Yeah, my mind's still spinning, to be perfectly honest. It's blown away.
Yeah, we're fun. And how have you been for a while?
Say again.
So how have you been? I haven't seen you for a while. It's been a long, long time.
I've been good, mate. I've been good. It's been very busy. I've just come off the Christmas period, so you know what it's like over Christmas. It's running.
I don't know how
around
you
like
stay as consistent as you do whilst doing everything that you're doing. Like that's one thing that I always say when anybody ever asks me out. I'm like, I don't know how he manages to balance everything that he's balancing. Like it's just for me, and to stay as consistent as you do and posting as consistently as you do. I just really don't know how you keep up with it. I try and then I just fail.
It's a lack of sleep, I think, really is the main thing that you have to, not sleeping very much. But what about you? Last time I had you on the channel, you just left Illusionist. You were kind of the poster boy for Illusionist for many, many years. And you'd made the decision when I last spoke to you that you were going to step away and you had your own thing and you had your own path that you were going to walk down. And you weren't really 100% sure what you were going to do, but you knew that you had ideas and stuff that you were going to, projects that you were involved with. And we know, obviously, you do a lot of consulting behind the scenes with a lot of big name magicians and mentors from all over the world, a lot of TV consultancy. But how's your life been since leaving Illusionist, since that last video that we did? What have you been up to?
It went wild. I ended up at one point I think I just started. I said to you last time, maybe it was just on the cusp of me going in working on these 6 productions. And I were doing a couple of bits for Netflix. And then right off the back of coming out of that, I think I went straight on to work on the Dynamo show. Not the last one, I worked on that as well, but the one before it. And that were a really strange experience because I say we, and when I'm talking as a we now, I'm sort of seeing it as a team. We're a team. So when I say we, I don't mean I were part of that decision making because I wasn't, but we ended up like renting an office or it were a massive house that we rented and turned it into a production house. And so I ended up living most of my life down there. I ended up living down in London for like 6 months, and then I were on and off that. And then at the weekends, I were flying off over to Germany to direct. So I was started as a consultant in Germany, and I was sort of co-directing because when you're a consultant, you sort of know what can be looked at, what can't. You know what you want filming. If you're doing techniques like freeze boxing, or you're going to be clipping a bit out, the director, who's not necessarily magic minded, might not know that you're going to clip those bits out. So you ended up co-directing, and then ended up taking over when something happened with the director's family in Germany, and I've consistently been doing that. At the time, I was writing, and I think I was developing a pirate pilot in Belgium, and then I started writing something for the act that went over to Dubai. Again, that were crazy. Then ended up working on a Vegas stage show. I think I did Britain's Got Talent, Italy's Got Talent in between then, and then a couple of chat shows like Ellen DeGeneres and a couple of other bits in between that as well, and just wild. And then, that were a solid 6 month to 8 month job. That last Dynamo production, and then I ended up one of the edit. I went in edit producing on that as well. So I actually sat in Sky Studios, like editing the TV shows it were going to go out. It were a really difficult show to work on, for a lot of different reasons that, I'm not going to get into. But during that time, I think I went out to. I also did the Super Bowl. So I worked on the Super Bowl. I worked on the Eddie Hearn podcast. I worked with the England rugby squad. I went on from there, just did the Manchester United. So it's been wild. It's been a wild like year or maybe more. But when I went out to work in America, we were doing like the Demi Lovato shoot, the Tony Hawk shoot, and some other bits. I met my wife now. So we actually met on set. She were a producer, but she wasn't working for the same company that we were working for. So we were working for a production company, and stateside they had a sister company, and then they worked for this sister company, and we just started hanging out, and we just started almost seeing each other, and then that were over a year ago, and then here we are today. We ran away, we eloped to Vegas and got married on a whim, just one afternoon, just for a bit. And then, yeah, that's been that. And it's been one of the craziest decisions that I've ever made in my life. But great, so yeah, everything is really, really good. At the minute, we're working on a stage tour. We've just finished the Miracles TV show. If you've not seen that, I highly recommend going to watch it. Like incredible. D just really pulled it out of the bag. Like we've gone, I say Stephen Dynamo's gone back to being more him. He's refound himself again. He's doing incredible things. Like he's just one of the, for me, like before working with him, didn't really know much about what he did. Seeing him now, I've never met anybody work as hard in my life. He's like you. He just puts the hours in, and it shows. He's like an incredible magician. He's really coming into his own. His interview technique is far better than mine. You know what I mean? He's doing incredible things. So yeah, it's incredible watching that. I say growth, but he's got far more experience than I have in that realm anyway. But yeah, so that's it.
You talk about that first special, Dynamo is Dead. That was such an incredible way to kind of come back. I remember at the time saying that the Magic Square, especially, stuck in my mind as like probably the best version of that I've ever seen. Like it was just brilliant.
It was so hard for a couple of reasons. Now, not to get into the logistics of stuff because it's not my business to talk about, it's but people don't really understand TV, and it's really funny when I see posts on the internet when people are going, "Oh, I'm doing my first television show. What should I do?" And then you get a load of people that just jump on and like sprinkle out a load of like marketed products. Now, the problem with that, what a lot of people don't understand is that when you're working with a big company on a big production, let's say it's a book test. Now, you've got to write in advance to the company that have published that book. You've got to tell them the specific page and the specific line. Well, how can you do that if you don't know what's going to be picked? Right. So there's a logistical can of worms that gets opened up. There's a lot to it. And it's not just one email. You've got to take that idea to a member of production. That member of production is going to then pass that off to somebody else. Then the production company are going to email across to the company that if it's a real world book that you're using. If it's a fake one, it doesn't matter. But you can't use the title. So let's say it's the Da Vinci book test. You couldn't use that. So you have a couple of choices. It's like, okay, we can use copyright-free books. But then if you're using copyright-free books, where are these books going to be? Are these books amongst a series of other books? If you're using a can for summer, is it incidental, or is it, if we're specifically picking it, are they going to believe or perceive it to be product placement? If it's product placement, then there's different laws that apply to that. So it's like everything has to go through 16 channels, 20 channels before it can appear on a set. And it could be something as simple as a pool cue or a snooker cue that's got a label on it. Pictures in the wall on the background that's art by an artist that we can't get hold of, that we've had to blur out. And And when you realize that the decisions that are being made, we were working on an Out of This World on there with Stephen Bartlett, and the backwards and forwards to get a glass table because we wanted the camera to be underneath the table so you could see the cards as they were being dealt. It were like a 4 week long backwards and forwards with production just to sign off on a glass table to film it from that perspective. It's like, and when you realize that and all the decisions that are being made, you realize sometimes that it's all well and good having a million and one ideas, but putting those ideas into effect, you don't know when you're going to get the green light on them. So what was so difficult about working on Dynamo is Dead, and I'm sure that Stephen would say this, is that he had never really you think back to Stephen shows. You think back to Stephen shows, he does a trick and then he walks away. That's what he's
Yeah.
always done. He's done something really quick. The magic's always spoke for itself. He's done, not to say he didn't speak, but he really let the magic do the speaking for him, and then he walked away. And he then all of a sudden had to hold his own doing these interviews that what you see on screen is 5 minutes, 10 minutes. And that's not because the best of it were clipped out. It's because some topics we couldn't talk about. It might be, you've also got to take into account, let's say, for example, that we're doing a segment on somebody that's going through depression and they tragically do something. I'm not going to say what it is because it could, for fear of having this video taken out, but could tragically do something
Yeah.
to themselves. If that's happened and it's all in the news everywhere, a celebrity's just done this, well, then that dictates that that bit can't go into the interview that you've been talking about.
Yeah. Mm.
So like
Yeah.
all of that is like is there's a lot of stuff that don't make it in because of that. Now, him going in and all of a sudden conducting an hour-long interview and having to learn the research notes of these guests, not having prompts, there's no prompts. So with every guest that he's going in at that's inspired him in some way, he's had to look up and learn about their life. He's had to, and the production's job at that point is to try to make the best story possible. So because it's a documentary, they don't care about the magic. So now all of a sudden they're putting 98% of their focus on the story, which is right, which is their job. But you're fighting for that 2% for the magic to be the best that it could be. And that's what made it really
Yeah.
difficult because let's say we signed off on a book, just as an example, I'm just using that as an example. Let's say we signed off on a book, then we might be told, right, you're doing that tomorrow. And we've not
Yeah.
had a chance to figure everything out. So the amount of work, Dee might not have slept for 2 days. Stephen might not have slept for 2 days, cramming those rehearsals, going through, creating what he wants to see, creating the vision of what it is that he wants to do. And like, make no mistake about it, like the guy is a machine. He comes up with some of the greatest ideas, things that you wouldn't imagine. And that we're there to try to facilitate making it happen. You know what I mean? And obviously we're sprinkling our own ideas in. And most people ask, well, why would you need a consultant? Well, the fact's really simple is that if you get told that you're going to produce 50 effects in one show, which is what it usually starts as, and then gets whittled down to the best 20, if you're going to do that, there's not one person that within a month can create that amount of effects. It's just not. It's not possible. So why would you turn it down? But then imagine having to spend time learning how to do interviews. Imagine having to give interviews being somebody that don't really talk to people. And then imagine having to stay around after the effect to deal with how to deal with the spectators staying there. Because part of the reaction that he'd get is D found and Blaine found this and other people found what I always call it's the magic formula. And it's this. If you film magic for long enough, you realize that people tend to react once they think the camera's been turned off. That's what
Yeah.
happens. You get a second wave reaction. So you get your reaction. They think the camera's been turned off. Now you get your more explosive reaction because they're holding it in on camera.
Yeah.
But when you
Yeah.
walk away, they think, oh, that's the end of this. And then they give that reaction naturally. And they found that magic formula. And so now you were penned into staying in that situation. So not to make this all about that, because I don't want it to be. I want it to be a fleeting thing. And I really don't want him thinking that I'm sat talking about it because I'm not. But he really put in so much time and so much effort and watching, and it were really just watching him grow. And now when you watch Miracles, which is, in my opinion, it's an epic show. Like he designed everything himself, he went over everything himself. You look at that, and it truly makes you appreciate how far he's come as not only a presenter but a performer. It's like he's no longer that kid that's dancing to music videos with his cap on backwards. Do you know what I mean? He's like really coming to his own as a you feel that not character, because it's him. He loves his magic and he breathes it, but he's really come into his own, and he's really watch it. Like I'd go as far as saying that, and I've seen him do. He can pull it out of the bag in the most incredible ways. Like he'll go in there and under impossible circumstances manages to do the most incredible things. Do you know what I mean? And that's that. The Magic Square on there were fun. Like I've got all the behind the scenes stuff because I shot every bit of it. Like I filmed every bit, not to air it ever, like not, but just so I could look at it and instead of making hundreds of notes. And that were Gregory Wilson and I were talking about that. We'd flown a load of people into Vegas, and that ended up just being something that were a bit of fun. And I said, I think there's a way I can do this with a break. And the beauty is the camera doesn't cut the moment that the balls get broken. You know what I mean? And then it pans down, you still see the balls rolling, and it ends up being the Magic Square, which were always the idea. You know what I mean? But yeah, that were a wonderful show to work on, and also like I learned a lot. I learned a lot whilst I were there, and we had a director come in that were famous for filming skateboard videos. So not filming magic, and never filmed magic, never worked on magic before. And so it were really one of those shows where everybody were figuring out what their role was on the job. Do you know what I mean? That also made it equally difficult. But there's nothing worse. I watch on, I see online, like I read comments. I don't really spend time, I don't really care about online comments. I've talked to you about this in the past privately. I don't really care what people say. But when people are posting and saying, oh, too many cuts for my liking, and I sit there thinking, do you know what? This piece of magic, like the Stephen Bartlett Out of This World, I have on my phone, start to finish, because I'm filming it behind the scenes, 7 minutes long with no cuts, and the effects the exact same.
Yeah.
But nobody wants to watch a 7 minute performance of somebody dealing cards. So it's like you've got to
No.
choose where you're going to cut whilst retaining the integrity of the magic. Actually, it's nothing's being cut to protect the secret of the trick. That's the fact. It's being cut to retain the viewership. That's it. Retain the attention of the viewership. A lot of that stuff, there's amount of times I say, oh, too many camera tricks and this. What camera tricks? Like I always say, tell me which thing's a camera trick, and I'll tell you it's not, because most of it can be done live. Do you know what I mean? And that's the beauty of it. I'm not saying all of it doesn't benefit from sometimes cutting a bit out, or filming something from a particular angle. But then in the real world, I've explained it this way. Let's say you were palming a card. You'd have to be an idiot if you've got your hand to your side to be performing with your back to your audience at that point. Do you know what I mean? You'd
Yeah.
put your audience in front of you and palm the card. Well, you gesture with a card palm behind your hand. Well, why wouldn't you put the camera where you place the audience? And if you can move the camera around, that'd only be the same as moving a spectator around live, because it's seeing the same thing.
Yeah.
Do you know? So anybody who says, "Oh, it's creative angles," no, it's not. It's where we'd place the audience if they were stood watching this when we do it. You know what I mean? So there's a lot more to it, a lot of nuance to it.
And
But yeah,
this is this why if anybody's watching this, if they get a chance to perform on TV and have a fairly high profile spot, you should be reaching out to somebody like you that's got experience with dealing. I know when Ryan was on America's Got Talent, and he was in the semi-finals. We were there for a week and a half, and every day they were completely changing his act around. Every day they were, right, now he's got 3 minutes, now he's got 4 minutes. Now we want you to take that out. Now we want to put that in. And it happens. And people really need to reach out to somebody like you who can help navigate. Because if you're a magician or a mentalist and you're used to performing live, performing on television is a completely different thing, right?
yeah, and it's not only that. It's like you can have an idea of what it is that you want to achieve, and sometimes you might not. It's not that you look. You could say to me, "I want to do X, Y, and Z," and it's your idea completely. But when we get in there, I might go, "Okay, this is America's Got Talent. What can we absolutely not let the camera see?" So how do we force the camera to be in a specific place? So then it might be that I add X, Y, Y and a half, Z. And that Y and a half is like something that we've choreographed to force one of the cameras from airing your secret. But I know that because I know that that's where that camera needs to be at that point. So I'll build a little bit of choreography there that forces the edit to be edited a certain way. And it's like with like America's Got Talent or Britain's Got Talent or any Got Talent show, they have the right to edit it whatever way they want. So how do you force them to have to edit it the way that you want? That's what you're paying for your consultants for. They sit there and they specifically work out exactly what it is you're going to do. Now, I'd say if you're doing a Got Talent show, I always recommend Russ Stevens. Like, look, he's got more experience than anybody else in that field. I'm not, I'm not going to sit here and say he's not. Like, he's just knows the show better than anybody. So I'd recommend hiring him. But when it comes to like knowing about the power of how to direct spectators and knowing the power of, you could be the best performer in the world, but my aim when I get you onto a set is that all you have to worry about is the performing. I don't want you worrying about where the cameras are. I don't want you worrying about whether a spectator is going to do something that you want them to do. I don't want you worrying about, let's say, for example, you're doing something with a bank card and I need it to come out of their wallet for insurance reasons. Whatever reason it is, it really doesn't make a difference. But I don't want you having to go, how am I going to get it in there? What am I going to do with this? I just want you to turn up and do what you do best. And my job's to take the stress off your shoulders and to take the stress away from you. Now, I had this discussion I were at the Magic Castle a bit back, and I were talking with somebody who were a magician's assistant, and they're like, "Oh, you'll never understand what it's like to be a magician's assistant and be doing stuff, and somebody else taking." And I'm sat thinking that's exactly what the job of a consultant is. We're there to lift the load of the person that's on screen, and that's it. And there's a lot of heavy lifting. There's a lot of not sleeping. There's a lot of, I mean, it's the exact same. You're essentially an assistant. What you are is you're the gimmick that goes in the deck. What you are is you're the app that they're using on their phone. What you are is the person that's making sure that the integrity of the effect is kept as strong as it can be. And at the same time, it's nice to have soundboards. Like whatever idea
Yeah.
you think you've got, you don't have all the knowledge in the world, and neither do I. So
Yeah.
what our combined knowledge is going to be better than your singular knowledge. But at the same time, you can get into this mindset where you think that bringing 20 or 30 people in is going to be beneficial, and it's not. Because then you've got 20 or 30 people with encyclopedic knowledges all arguing about what should be done and what shouldn't be. So it could be a detriment to the act. So, when you decide on consultants, pick somebody carefully, look at what it is you want to achieve. Like, do you want somebody who understands the cameras, direction, you know, how I am as a person, I'm quite reserved on set. If I need to say something, there's ways to say it. You don't want somebody, and I've done this years and years ago. I worked on Ryan Trixie's show, and I didn't understand really that it's very easy to piss a director off. Do you know what I mean? By going in and saying, right, you're going to do this, and you're going to, that's not the way you work. In the rehearsals, you talk to your director about what your vision is and say, look, for the magic, this is what I think the problems are. Here's a couple of solutions, but ultimately it's your call, and I just wanted to bring it to you. And then the director's going to go away and then it's going to figure out what they need to do with the crew. You're not the one they might just turn it over to you, which happens a lot of the time. Like it happens with me all the time. They'll say to me, look, can you direct this? Can you just point this bit out? Right, Pete's going to run point on this. Just listen, right? I need camera A there. B, this is what I want you to do. I need you to come in so that camera A sees you coming in. But before we do that, C, you're going to be on close-ups here. B, we're going to have you coming in. We need to shoot a pickup after this. And this. Do you know what I mean? And I know why
Yeah.
why we're cross shooting, why camera B's muddying the shot of camera A, why camera C's staying in close. Like it might be that there's a specific purpose for that, but knowing it is, it's a difference between a good consultant and a bad one. I'm not saying I'm a good one, but anyway, yeah, I'd highly recommend if you are going on television, pick somebody who knows. And the honesty with me is, look what I just did. I just told you if you're doing Britain's Got Talent America, it doesn't mean I don't work on those shows. The very first thing that I do is I recommend Russ, but Russ might be working with somebody else, right? If it's an area of mentalism or magic that I don't specialize in, I mean mentalism, I know enough of it to be able to do anything really, or I can invent anything. But if it's magic, I can put you in contact with the exact consultant that I think that would be right for you, or I can give you recommendations. Do you know what I mean? Like like at a table,
Yeah.
I can sit and I can spew out magic ideas till the cows come home. I don't need to know the methods for those. What I can do is spew out 10 ideas and say, right, this is the consultant you need to make these 10 ideas happen. So it's, you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
it's like it's knowing and building and growing, and it's something I've done for a long time now. So, and it helps me as a
So,
performer.
so I was going to bring that up. Here's a question for you. I know how much you love performing, and one of the things I love watching is watching you performing. You're an incredible performer. Do you with so much? You've just said the first 9 months after leaving Illusionist was just consultancy job, traveling all over the world. Does it sometimes kind of get to you where it's like, well, I'm kind of telling everyone else what to do. I'm not getting a chance to go out and perform myself. Do you get frustrated with that sometimes?
You're actually doing a lot more performances as a consultant than you'd realize.
Okay.
Because let's say, for example, a camera team come in and they want to run camera rehearsals. You might not want your talent who's just been on a 30-hour flight to sit. So what you do is you do all the performances back to back, and the cameras are watching you do it. Do you know what I mean? Or it might be that you go to a meeting and it might be a television meeting. It's like, oh, like, oh, you're in a room where you're in front of bookers or investors. You might be able to do the little bit that you need to do. For me to translate my idea, it's better for me to perform it and go through all the scripts than it is to just write it down and hand you it as a text document where it's lacking all tone and emotion.
Yeah.
So you're actually doing a lot more performing than you'd think. And also, let's say, for example, it's out and out your idea, which is never really the case. It's normally a collaborative effort and you'll be sprinkling bits in over the top. Or if it is your idea, then they'll take it and make it their own. In consultancy, what you tend to do is when you're taking that idea to them, you'll have to perform it on them. So you're always performing, but in terms of real world performance, I don't get as much time to do it as I'd like. And the honesty is, like, outside of very few jobs that offer me good money, it's not worth it. Like, really not worth it. It's like I'm bound by artistic license when I'm performing live. So I can't, you know yourself, I can't, if I want to spend 5 minutes at a table just telling them a story about my life, I can't do that. I've got to be in. Hi guys, I've been booked as in at 10. And like it always sticks to that. For me, it's like conveyor belt style performances. And whilst I don't have
Yeah.
a set of what it is that I don't have the same set that I perform to each group. I don't. I never have. I never will. I just in the moment feel this is what I want to perform and I perform it. I ask them a question about their life and their answer is going to dictate what it is that I perform on them. I tailor make each one of my performances for the group that I'm performing on. And that gives me a slight bit of freedom, but it's still not what I want. But if the money's right, if I'm earning what I'd earn for a day's consultancy in 20 minutes, then I'd be stupid not to take that if I'm not doing anything else.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So sometimes that's not to say that, like, look, sometimes the money, it's a business. Like this is how I make my living. So I've got to look at it like that. And if the money's good enough, I'm gonna do it. Years and years ago, I was charging 50 quid an hour, doing shows at 50 quid an hour. That's not sustainable for me now. I spend more. My electricity bill in my gas and electricity is nearly £700 a month. Do you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like on 50 quid an hour, I'm not going to be able to, and then only doing, let's say I were doing two shows that were an hour long each. That's £100 for two shows. I'm not
Yeah.
going to be able to do that. It's not sustainable for me to do that. And then I'm performing to audiences in working men's clubs that I don't want to perform to. So it doesn't really make
Yeah.
sense. It doesn't financially make sense. But don't get me wrong, that doesn't mean that when I'm sat there, that everywhere I go, that's when I say relatively local, I mean like if I were to go over to my hometown in Bradford, everybody knows what I do. So they're always, oh, it's that guy that does this. If I do one, I can swear to you, like Mark Shandau will attest to this. We once went out to a nightclub and we had like a queue of about 100 people in a line round a corner waiting to have their palm read. And I'm like, look, guys, I'm gonna have to go. I've come for a night out. Do you know what I mean? It's like, so word spreads really quickly and you become known locally as whatever. Like I just told you this, like I think I was telling you earlier about the story of walking into the bar and everybody, oh, it's that guy that looked in my hand and did X, Y, and Z. So don't mean that I don't perform, but I just do it on my rules then, you know what I mean? And it's on my watch. And I want to do more on camera performances. I've got about 10 years of my life documented. Do you know what I mean? 10 years of everything documented. And so that's probably the direction that I want to head in. But yeah, I perform enough, but it's on my rules and on my terms now. I don't have to do it to financially survive, which
Yeah.
which which I think makes a difference. It's like it makes a big difference in the necessity to do something often brings something out in you that you don't expect it to bring out, but then the reflection of that often brings something out that's better. And being able to
Yeah.
sit and constantly reflect and refine my performances. I mean, I'm at a
Yeah.
place now. I'm not even just saying it. I got into a bit of a debate with somebody once on something they'd seen me perform something like 5 years ago, and they said that, well, I just thought it was terrible. I'm like, okay, great, great for you. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I'm 5 years down the line, and I'll tell you what, I'm better than I've ever been. I'm quicker than I've ever been. I'm performing things in ways that I'd never performed before. I'm capitalizing on things that I didn't see before. I'm understanding it from perspectives that I didn't understand it before. So I'm just in an
Yeah.
all different place, and I think the next 5 years are going to be really interesting because it is going to be my time at some point.
Well, which brings me to another question. Of course, obviously, when you were at Illusionist, you were releasing a fair amount of product. Part of your job there was to, like get involved, consult with a lot of the stuff that came out. You were kind of the face of the, how to read minds, how to control thoughts, that sort of thing. Um, where are you with recreating since leaving Illusionist? Because I know you've done several high-profile lectures, and obviously we're going to be talking about the big thing that's out right now that I really want to get into. But did you feel, I don't want to say the word burnt out, but did you kind of, when you were at Illusionist, you were kind of immersed in that creative process, creating products? Did you feel like you needed to take a step back from that for a while? Where are you with that sort of side of your?
But the honesty is, I do miss the way that we worked there. I really do. Like, I know that sounds daft. I don't miss being an illusionist, but I miss the way that we worked. And what I mean by
Yeah,
that is this: it's like I have, I have now several people that can film, but when I need somebody to film, I have to work around their schedule.
yeah,
So it's like, oh, I can do Tuesday the 12th of whatever, and then it'll be for 4 days or whatever. I can grab a camera myself and stick it on a tripod. But what were nice at Illusionist is that we'd go somewhere, somebody else would schedule what the day would be, somebody else would plan where we'd go for lunch, somebody else would plan the cars picking us up, somebody else would book the hotels, somebody else would then come and film it, somebody else would edit it, and I just had the chance to sit and just be me. I didn't have to like now there's a light here, there's like a light behind me there, there's a light on the floor behind me here, and like you know what I mean, I'm having a look at my background and I won't have to do any of that. I just
yeah,
go to and do it. So in terms of workload, working for yourself is like a million times harder and more difficult. You know yourself, I don't need to tell you, but so so I won't burn out. They actually helped me a lot in terms of what it is that I did. What I said, and I'm very open about it, and I was talking to Grind about this just recently, you know, dressing me up in a t-shirt and asking me to shill a product that I don't like is a different thing. Like that spider pen, like is not it doesn't represent my art. And what I want is if I'm
yeah,
gonna have if I'm gonna have a team behind me, look, I'm all for the compromise. I've said it to you when I talked to you on the phone the other day and we talked about this interview. I said to you, it'd be really nice if you don't mind for you to send me a list of the things that you put in your videos, the worst products of 2024. And then I take them
yeah,
and I see what I can do with them as a consultant. And I make like a clapback video where I go, look, I've taken these and this is what I think you can do with them. And I said to you, you shouldn't have to do that. That was the very first thing I said to you. You shouldn't have to do it. It should come like that already. But what can we do with them?
yeah,
And it's like that's my art, that's my vision there, and that's it. What I don't want to do is I don't want to go to somewhere. I don't mind a compromise, and I don't saying, look, this app, I don't usually use it this way, but this is my take on predictogram, for example, and then I put out my take on it. I like that. But when you say to me, look, I want you to wear this t-shirt, I want you to put this predictogram thing on the back of your phone, I want you to now talk about how it's the best thing that you've ever done, and here's the lines that you're going to use, and that's not me. That's not.
yeah,
That's what problem I had, and like, and I know that they think that my attitude were pretty diva-ish. I know they think that, but it wasn't. It was just standing my ground for what I believed in, and like I
mm,
always said that. Look, there's one thing that I know. I don't claim to be the best. I'm not competing with anybody else. I don't claim to be the most slick, elegant performer. I don't be the best looking performer. I don't claim to have the highest profile. What I do have is the fact that I stick to my values and my rules as a character inside and outside of mentalism. And that's it. And that went against my rules. And do you know what? One or two times I know people make mistakes. I'm willing to forgive. Second time, I'll probably, but the third time, I'm just like, that's it. No more now. I'm not doing it. And that's where we got
yeah,
to with Illusionist. And I've made that pretty clear with them. You're like, look, like, that's not to, I've worked with them since. I've collaborated on the PK book with them. And I'll go into that, if you want. But I don't have any resentment towards them. Like, I don't have the same bitter feelings that I had at the time. I understand why they did it as a business. I get it. Like, for them, it's solely a business. For me, I've got to retain that artistic integrity. And I know Geraint understands that. He's, like for everything that anybody's ever said about Geraint, I'd actually consider him a friend outside of like mentalism and magic, the business. So you know, he knows that this is what I'd say to his face. I'd never say out behind his back. I know he'd watch this interview and he'll know that that's the truth. I'd say it to him. Like, I don't want to be a shill for products like a little shitty spider dropping out of a pen and have to create a really nice piece of mentalism around it when I could spend that 5 minutes doing things that are much better.
Yeah.
That's it. So that was the reason. I loved the team spirit. I loved, like, you know, and he is, you know, regardless of what you say about him, he's very organized, is G, and he makes sure the business runs smooth. And against all odds, when everything were falling to shit with a lot of other companies, he's managed to keep the doors open. So you got to give him some credit.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. In fact, I actually said that they've had a good year. 2024 has been a really good year for them. They've done really good.
Yeah,
There's been
I
some.
haven't seen anything that they do. I haven't seen anything anybody's doing, to be honest.
Well, you've been concentrating on creating content yourself, and we're going to talk about the Grail. But first of all, you set up your own YouTube channel, which I know that you're planning to do a lot more on in the future. But for those people that don't know, you've been and when I say creating content, I mean a lot of the stuff I do. You say, how can I do as much as I do? A lot of it's against a blank wall, and it's very, very basic when it comes to editing, because I haven't got the time to do anything else. But you've been doing some very high production stuff on your YouTube channel, right?
Yeah, it's hard. That's what I'm saying. It got to a point where it was just like the first. If you go on my YouTube, if you go on my YouTube or type in Peter Turner episode 1 or Peter Turner is mind reading real, and it brings up a full episode that's like 30 minutes long or maybe 40 minutes long. I don't know, but the same amount of time that going to like making a TV special is the amount of time it takes. But the difference is that there's no budget, and that's what's hard about it. It's like it's that's the bit that does me. It's like I don't mind doing YouTube and I don't mind filming these things, but people don't realize the costs involved in it. It's like if you've got a team of 2 people, that's 2 people's wages, that's 2 people's expenses, that's 2 people's dinners. Then it's editing time, which is time away from other things that you could be doing. Then it's days away from other things that you could be doing. Then there's the pre-production planning. Then there's the planning of it, and also there's a real interesting balance when you're filming stuff like that. And what you're looking for is one of 3 things. The first thing that you're looking for is your performance all right? The second thing you're looking for is this filmed all right? You can have the most banging performance in the world and it's just filmed like shit. So you're like, or you could have the most banging bit of footage in the world and it's performed like shit. Or somebody, and it's not just you that's performing. You got to remember, and this is an odd comment to make, but you got to imagine that the person that you're performing to is like an actor in a film. So what they're doing is they're also performing, but they just don't know they're performing. So if they say something that makes that not worth airing, that performance is gone. So imagine you have the most incredible reaction in the world from, let's say, a date of birth revelation. I'm just making that up, right? You have the most incredible reaction in the world. But a quarter of the way through it, they've had a phone call or they've just made some ridiculous comment or they've just done something that's so stupid. Well, that full performance now, when you try to edit it together, you might get it somewhere near, but everybody just sort of feels like there's something edited out of it. And so what do? They jump on, oh, this is edited, someone's edited something out, and it's not. You might just be clipping a bit out where they took a phone call. I'm just in the middle of this incredible mind reading experience with this, but you don't want to leave that in. So it's like, so then that piece ends up being montaged. It ends up going in like just as a reaction to a series of other things. And it's like, it's just time and money and effort, and I want to do it. I really want to commit to doing it, but what I need is, and maybe there's somebody out there that's watching this that would like to do it with me. I'm all open to working something out with somebody that would just like to do it, like maybe an internship or like to just film. I used to have a guy called Adam Casper, and because he's used to stay in my house, we'd live together. We could get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and he'd just grab a camera and we'd go out and go, and that'd be it. And we'd film every day, everything that we were doing all day. Whether we were going up to Scotland, Wales, abroad, we just filmed it all. But it's just financially not feasible to hire somebody 24 hours a day to come and film with me. And then
Yeah.
and then when you do that, where do you put it all? You know what I mean? So I've got like I must have hard drives, hundreds of terabytes of hard drives just lying around the house with just 10 years of my life just filmed, and not a lot of it's, and then there's editing time, you know what I mean? It's just a lot. So I do want to do
Mhm.
more with it, and I always make this promise that I'm going to do more. But I think the way that I'm going to do it is I think I'm going to rein it back and simplify it a bit. And I think maybe it's do 3 videos just like this, where I'm just talking to a screen. where I'm live, and then do 2 more videos which are like performance based, and then I also want to start a channel. Like Lloyd's inspired me to want to start a channel where it's nothing to do with mentalism. I want to do my cars. I'm always taking bikes and cars apart. I'm always going to like racetracks. I'm always building something in the house. I'm always fixing something. I'm always making something. I'm always traveling somewhere or doing something. And I think that maybe I'll do a lifestyle channel, and that might be easier because I can shoot it like a vlog.
Yeah, that would be a lot easier. Yeah.
But I just don't know if I get the following. But who knows?
You never know. You never know. But I mean, all of this content creation brings us to the Grail, which I would say is your biggest self-produced project that you've brought out since leaving Illusionist.
Yeah.
Um, and everybody is raving about it. And I want to talk about it. I'm going to ask you some questions, and we have a performance as well that you literally did off the cuff to us. But it's it's all about propless mentalism. At one point, you were kind of the branded the poster boy of propless mentalism, and it was kind of very polarizing in the magic community because people have very different definitions or ideas about what propless mentalism is and if it's any good or not. Before we get into any of that, like, what made you decide to put this project together? What is it? Can you summarize it? And what made you decide to put it together? Yeah, that'd be the first question.
So it looks like this. It's got a ribbon on it. It's just really beautifully. What I have done is I've censored this out so you can't see what the link is at the bottom. But you get a personalized letter. If you got this, a few of these will go out. There's a number of these that I normally keep back, whether it's the PK book or anything, and I'll keep a number back that's specifically for retail. So it might be that 50 goes out to retail, tops. So, and then so you get this little letter, and then it takes you to a hub that goes off to a load of different material. But it's not just my thoughts. There's thoughts from Mark Elsden in there, Joshua Quinn, Fraser Parker, Manos Katsikis, Jade DiBiase, like Joshua, there's loads, Joshua Quinn's, loads of people in there, too many to name. Oliver Bose. I don't want to forget anybody, but there is a lot in there. And then what it'll do is it'll look at an overview of things that I've done in the past. There's archival performances, but I really overview them and take into account the problems people have had with them. And I break down ways to sidestep those problems. Like Isabella Star 3, for example. When you read that in a book, it really doesn't do it justice on how good it looks in the real world. But it's not an easy thing to, perform. So I break down the easiest way to perform it. Do you know what I mean? I break down the easiest way to do it, and I go into detail on lots of different things, lots of different books in there. But it's not really a Propless. It's not really Propless. It's I'd call it more impromptu. It is Propless, but it's not, and I'll explain why in a second. So I'm just readjusting myself to make sure I don't pull my laptop off. Yeah, I were never. It were always interesting because I almost viewed it like political theatre, like wrestling. Whenever I were out at lectures, whenever I were doing like, whenever I once remember sitting on a debate panel. I've done it twice, 3 times, debate panels where I just debate people on why Propless were a good idea. I'd always, I knew I were playing a character. I'm very open about that. I knew that that's why I were at that convention. That's why you were flying me there. That's why you were giving me a fee. And at the time, like, I'm just like, okay, well, this is getting me places. And obviously it's controversial enough to get me noticed. But the problem is that off the back of that, I think that the movement sort of took off, this underground movement, and there was some absolute shit that were produced. And the bad stuff far outweighed the good stuff. So and don't get me wrong, like I'm not going to sit here and say that everything I've ever produced is absolute dynamite, like, but I always say when something's just an idea that it's just an idea. So I'm very open about that. If you read through like some of my books, I always say this is just an idea I'm having whilst I'm writing this, you know,
Mm.
and it's like, and I'll put that it's an idea. Now, what people I think did is took Propless mentalism and they saw it as if it were people denouncing what had been tradition for the last however many years. And that were never the case with me. Like I have more respect for the classics and more respect for traditional methodology than I ever would for something that's only been around for 5 years. But that doesn't mean that I can't draw inspiration from that stuff and try to reduce some of the process or try to buy myself
Mm.
some presentational space. So I think I've got about 2% Propless material out of the 98% of things that I've ever produced. It just seems that people seem to think that everything that I do is Propless, and that's fine. That's all right.
I mean, I know that you've done a hell of a lot more than Propless Mentalism, but the Grail Project is, it's not Propless, like you say, it's
So,
impromptu,
so
but
what it
by
is
a
it
lot
is
of
it's
people's
Propless.
definition, it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So the very first bit that I talk about on the set, I talk about what the actual definition of Propless mentalism is, and it's almost impossible to define. And the reason it's impossible to define is because some people will say, okay, if you're not having somebody write something down and you're just putting a thought in the head and you're guessing it, like you're writing something down and showing it, that's propless because you've never had them use a prop to get to that thought. And then there's other people that'll say, no, no, if you've wrote it down and you've used a pen and paper, that's a prop. And then there's other people that'll say, well, if you're writing it down, why are you not just handing it to them to write something down and then use another method? So there's so many different definitions of what propless actually is. And for me, I like, look, I could perform, I could show, do you know Tequila Hustler?
Yeah, Mark Elsden's.
Yeah, Mark Elsden's Tequila. So I have my own version of Tequila Hustler, or a version I perform
Okay.
of Tequila Hustler, right?
Yeah.
And I love Tequila Hustler. I have a version of Which Hand that I perform.
Hmm.
And it's like, right, I have done it where the person's, we've got no object. And I say, look, you're just going to imagine a coin or you're going to imagine an object. And I've done it with a folded bottle cap or a slip of paper when we've had nothing, or just something that I find in the vicinity, whether it's I tear the corner off of a playing card or whatever. And the reaction is always 100% better from the crowd the moment you put that bottle cap in there, that little corner of a piece of card, because it gives one thing and it's called a point of reference. And that point of reference, nobody else can see the invisible coin. So when you're reacting, we all have our, but if you're doing it with an invisible coin, all we have to go off is your reaction. So if you go, yeah, yeah, it's there. That's it. Whereas if you open your hand and the bottle cap's there, everybody has an equal opportunity to react at the same time in unison. So it's actually beneficial to introduce anything that you could find, whether it's a pebble on the floor, whether it's a petal off of a flower, whether it's a leaf off of a tree. It doesn't make a difference, right? But does that constitute it being a piece of propless mentalism? I don't know. I like there's a prop there to react to, but the process of you getting to that revelation, to me, you're not having to write down whether you're going to go left, right, left, right. Do you understand my point? So it's
I do,
so
yeah.
so I've not bound myself by the constraints of what anybody else's definition is. I've looked at both sides of the coin and I've gone, mind the pun, and I've gone, what do I feel here is the best in the real world? What's the benefits over using this outside of using, say, Sixth Sense? Of you know what I mean? I've looked at the different methods and I've compared it. And I've been very realistic in doing that. And I've been very realistic in saying, like, look, this piece here, you'd be quicker just using a billet, but you're not always going to have one. So
Well, so playing devil's advocate for a minute.
please do this.
Um,
I want you to
yeah.
be the Craig Petty that's banging the table and give him some of that
So
wrestling,
yeah,
some of it.
being devil, yeah, yeah. So being devil's advocate here, a lot of people have said Propless mentalism, it's just basically guessing. And you say you've compared methods, and that's absolutely fine. When is it that Propless mentalism is better than using a prop? Because here's the thing, right? Don't we owe it to our audiences to do the best possible performance that we can do? And if that's the case, and we have to do the best possible performance that we can do, when are you ever going to be in a situation where using a method that requires no props would trump a method? You know, when you've got so many different devices that are available to you now, the amount of electronic devices, classic mentalism, peaks and Asius Novus and Centitares and God knows what, so many different ways that we can use to get information without looking like we're doing anything and be able to reveal that information easily compared to
Okay.
guessing.
So
Like, you know what I mean?
now let me ask you two questions.
Okay.
First question, you've just had me write a name down on a billet. You peaked it and you reveal it. Everybody's going nuts. And I say to you, no, he must have just somehow opened that piece of paper quickly. Do it again. I'm not going to write anything down. What do you do now?
I can't.
Why not?
Well, because they're going to be looking for the method, which is
So,
the
so then
method.
I ask you, taking your prop in there, and my question back to you is, do you think you're giving the best performance when you can't repeat what you can do a second time without using a prop? So why would you not be
Yeah.
prepared for that? Why would you not be prepared for that eventuality?
Okay.
Right. So that's the first thing.
I get
Second,
that. I get that.
right, so secondly, so straight away there, the very first thing that I'd do in that situation, if somebody says that to me, is this. I'd either turn around and say, okay, well, let's do this slightly differently. You take your phone out for me, do this calculation. I might use a one ahead. Might be that. But then if somebody's still not satisfied, I'm not saying that I'd like acquiesce to somebody that's being like that with me in a performance. I wouldn't, right? But what I do is I'd say, okay, well, you can stand here. This is what I want you to do. Now I know that I've got systems that I can use where I can definitely guarantee the outcome of a propless piece of mentalism with nothing. But I'm saying that it's to be used harmoniously. So one tale that I tell on the set, and I'll tell it now, and this is true. You can ask Daniel Young. Daniel Young worked in Davenport's magic shop. So Daniel Stainbridge and Daniel Young used to work down there. And so I go into Davenport's magic and I'm there. And one thing that I used to do is I used to make a joke and I'd pick the crappiest prop possible. I'd put the money on the counter. I say, if I like it, I'll buy it. And I'd have Dan Young messing about performing stuff that I knew he hated performing, right? But just for a joke. And one day, whilst we were halfway through this, some guy walks in and he says to Dan behind the counter, I need a book or a DVD set on the ability to be able to read something inside a folded piece of card. And Dan says, what do you mean? He goes, I want to do a mind reading, but I want to be able to look at what information's inside the piece of card. And Dan turned to me and he said, this is the man that to talk to on that. He'll probably be able to give you a better recommendation than I can. So I asked a couple of questions, which is for me, I was just trying to help this mentalist guide guide them to the best place
Yeah.
possible. I said, so what's made you want to do this? Like, what have you seen? What is it you've heard? What do you want to look at? Oh, well, I run a company and we've booked this mentalist, a very well-known mentalist. We've booked this mentalist every year for our Christmas corporate parties. And he does this thing where he gets people to write things down each time, and then he guesses what's written inside the bit of paper. So, I've just come to find a way to do that because over the last few years, my curiosity's peaked and I noticed that there's a pattern in it. With everything he's doing, he's having them write it down. And in my head there, I'm going, this is not a mentalist. This is a corporate booker. And this mentalist is going to lose their job if I don't do something now that's going to show the opposite. So I did life equation and a couple of other little bits and then a Propless name divination. And he went, wow. And I'm like, yeah, like I'm not naming the person purposefully. I went, they're far better than I am. I said, so I can tell you now, they don't need you to write something down and look at it. But what they do is they do that so that at the end you all have souvenirs to take home. And not only that, it's so that if it does go wrong or somebody's a skeptic, they can't change their mind. Oh, that was never explained. It makes sense now. And they left. And that situation taught me two things. The first thing that it taught me is this, is that one, like there should be a clear enough justification for the reason that you're introducing something like this. Now, I'm not saying that you should spend all your time introducing every single prop that you've got or every single time trying to justify why you're doing something. If props are self-justifying, then you don't need to do that, right? If they justify themselves when you bring them out. But I'll come back to that in a second. My second question to you is, let's say, for example, that we take a routine, and I just watched one on Instagram this morning, and what it is, and I'm sure you know the routine, it's a Queen of Hearts and there's 4 9 of spades. And the idea is that you put the Queen of Hearts down on the table, you take the 9 of spades, you turn it face down, and it changes visually to the Queen of Hearts. Then you take the next 9 of spades, you put that one down, and that changes to the Queen of Hearts. Then you take the next
Yeah.
one, and then you pick them all up, and they change. So you tell me why that trick's better than touching someone's palm and telling them the star sign. Now, you might say to me, well, they can be examined at the end, can the cards? Yeah, but what pack of cards have you ever seen in your life that has 4 9 of spades inside it? So that's not for the benefit of the performance, that's for the benefit of the performer. That's there to solely facilitate your method. That's why they've got the same backs and the same faces. Same with most 3 card Monties. What deck do you
Yeah.
maybe if your leading was that 3 packs of cards are on the table and I said, can you just give me an ace? Can you give me an ace and you give me a queen? Maybe that'd fix that, or one sentence would make sense there. But you're justifying on the way in and somebody said this to me the other day, and I thought it was really interesting. Is okay, so that's the case. Now, let's say that we do justify it. So in the middle of this routine, we know that there's 4 9 of spades and a Queen of Hearts. Well, what the method there is now also forced what the presentation's got to be, because now I've got to justify why there's 4 9 of spades. So now I'm boxed into that anyway. And at the end of it, like, doesn't matter whether they can examine those cards or not. That routine for me is not a good routine. It's you. If you took 4 regular cards and you changed them to 4 different cards, or if you took 5 cards and changed them into a royal flush, well, that, whilst the makeup's still the same, it's actually interesting and it's beneficial in the real world. But
Yeah.
I think that what happens is magicians and mentalists fall into this phallus trap where they think, and don't get me wrong, I'm going to agree with you on one thing, that sometimes the prop is beneficial, and I will explain why. But they fall into this phallus trap where they think that these weird little props that they're walking around with, these little things like that they're, and I've sat and listened to audiences. They sit there, first thing they do is they go, "He's playing with a rigged deck." That's not a
Mm.
benefit, but you don't hear that because you're too busy getting the reaction, and then you go and then they think about it.
Yeah.
But then
I
the
mean,
third,
the best,
go
very
on.
quickly, the best presentation I ever saw. You're talking about wildcard there, and the best presentation I ever saw for it was Tommy Wonder, the late great Tommy Wonder, and he was just doing his set, and at some point in the middle of a trick, his alarm would go, and he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm just going to have a 5 minute break. I've got to do my hobby," and he pulls out a little packet of 9 of spades or whatever, and he acts like this is his hobby and he's changing the cards one at a time, and it's his hobby, he has to do it at that exact time. That's kind of anything like that. So don't you think anything can be
Yeah, but look
fixed
what you
with?
look what you've just said. So what you just said there is that the presentation had to be built off the back of the method that were
Yeah,
designed specifically to benefit the performer. And Tommy Wonder, whilst you're talking about Tommy Wonder also said, don't let the presentation become a casualty to the method.
yeah,
So that,
yeah,
to me, like it's, you're looking at that little bit there where Tommy Wonder pulls out. That's all well and good for me. If he, do you know what? Do you know what would be interesting? If Tommy Wonder had taken cards and he pulled them out, and let's say, for example, that he turned around and said his hobby, and he said, "Look, do you know how expensive it is to use playing cards?" And what I mean by that is every single gig, people take them, they sign on them, they tear them up. And at the end of the gig, I always find I've got stacks and stacks of cards that are all the same. So I've ever showed you how I recycle cards. Now, instead of turning them all to the Queen of Hearts or all to the Ace of Spades, to then turn them back to regular cards one at a time and put them in your pocket, that has a real world
yeah,
purpose, that you're recycling your cards and you've just got a collection, but still you're bound by the constraints, which is the same as a lot of Propless mentalism. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's not. A lot of bad Propless mentalism, the process forces what the performance is going to be. So don't think for a second that they're any different. But my point is that it's very easy, even with a prop, to, but what you just answered, and you just answered my question elegantly from the other perspective, or the other point of the argument is this, is that you made it shiny. So
yeah,
with the right presentation, you can take good Propless mentalism and also make it shiny. It doesn't have to be bad. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
But also, when I'm being chased out of a venue and someone's saying, "Can you just do that thing where you did this?" and I have nothing with me, and I have to show them something, I can do that. Or if I'm sat in an airport and I have nothing with me, I can do that. All I ever wanted was, like, for example, PK touches is completely propless.
mhm,
Does PK touches work in the real world? Of
yeah,
course it does. Right, it does. So then the idea for me is show somebody that trick with a 9 of spades, the wild card trick. I'm not saying it's not a good trick. Show them PK touches and see which one's been talked about afterwards. And I don't mean that disrespectfully to anybody who's performing a wild card routine or a transformation routine or whatever. Because a good performer can take that and make it seem better than PK touches. But I'm saying as a baseline effect, it's most basic. It's most basic. Those two effects, if you just describe them to somebody else, yeah, he took 4 9 of spades and he turned them all to Queen of Hearts. Or he stood 2 people at either side of the room and one of them had their eyes closed and he touched one person and the person felt it on the other side of the room. Which one sounds like more of an incredible tale? One of them's Propless and one of
yeah,
them's not. Right? And one of them, but there's for me, Propless mentalism. I'm not, like I said to you, I agree with you. One thing that I will say is, and I say this on the set, if you have somebody think directly of a card, so I'm thinking of a card and I beam it into your head right now. So you've got a card in your head, and then I tell you what
mhm,
it is. You might think that's the most incredible piece of mentalism ever because it's me and you transmitting one thought from one place to another. Or I could sit you down and there could be a pack of cards on the table, and I could say to you, right, I just want you to take half the cards off and throw them over your shoulder. So you do. Start tearing a series of cards until you want to stop. So you do. There's a lighter and a candle over there. Burn the cards, throw them on the floor. Right, we've arrived at one playing card, which is equivocate. As a performer, the equivocate option doesn't seem as appealing as the direct piece of mind reading. But from the perspective of an audience, watching you tear cards and burn them and throw them, it's more theatrical. So, so I don't disagree with you that sometimes the theatricality is very important when you're thinking about what it is that you're doing. But you know, I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent, but I also feel that the one I really love the term abracadabra. It's I create as I speak. And some of the greatest storytellers in the world are ones that just sit with a background exactly like yours on YouTube and tell stories, and they're able to use the words to paint the images that are inside your head. Like they paint this imagery, this beautiful imagery, and they can tell you these incredible stories. And sometimes that's a benefit if you're in the right environment. Do you know what I mean? Being able to tell an incredible story and then just have that little cherry on top at the end. It doesn't always require a prop to be able to do that. Like, for example, you take Lift, that doesn't use a prop. You know, you take, I do this date of birth divination, which you saw me do on Lloyd. Well, and I can do that over and over and over again. And I could do that arguably faster than somebody who could peak a billet. And, you know, when I were booked for You Go Boss, they just wanted me to go around and read people's palms. They didn't want me dicking about with little bits of card and paper. And don't get me wrong, it'd have been beneficial for me to use them. I use billet peaks. My billet peak is a very nice billet peak. Like if you ever watch my billet peaks on my projects, mine's inspired by Richard Bush's. And I have a very nice presentation for it. And I use billet peaks. I use DFB, but I just don't use it the same way that everybody else uses it. And it's by taking, I say it on the set and I'll say it to you. I'm not a Propless mentalist. I'm not a magician. I'm not a mentalist. I'm not a showman. What I am is I'm a problem solver. And what I mean by that is if that routine has got 4 9 of spades in it, to me, I see that as a problem. So what I do is the first question I ask myself is how can I fix that? And then I fix it. I either find a way to make this work or I find a way to do it without having to use 4 9 of spades. You know what I mean? I find a way to fix that problem. And that's the same in mentalism. If something's a problem, I fix it. And I never ever perceived a billet as being a problem. But the only time that a billet's a problem is when you're continually using a billet over and over and over again. Imagine that your entire set, and this is a problem that mentalists, and I've seen it with traditional classic mentalists, they can argue and say it's not the case. Sorry, I'm just closing my drawers. They could say that it's not the case. I've sat and watched traditional mentalists sit there and give somebody a billet, ask them to write something down, peek it, reveal it. Next person, write something down, peek it, reveal it. Next person, write something down, and they'll argue the information's different. Yeah, the information's different, but what's the difference between everybody in the room picking a card and just doing the ambitious card over and over and over and over and over and over again? You wouldn't do it. So it's like that is, I think you've got to know it. And if you want to have a knowledge of mentalism and a knowledge of everything, I never write anything off anymore. I used to do. I used to go, okay, like I'm going to write that off because it's not my style. But I know more about metal bending than I could ever want to know. I don't metal bend. I don't use that. It's not my character. But I'll tell you what, like as a thought exercise, it was fun because it taught me things about performance that I want to know. So the honest answer, with a long way around it, is this: is that like, look, sometimes selfishly, it's nice just to be able to do this stuff, but it's good to know these systems. And I don't call it Propess, I call it psychomechanical material. And the reason it's psychomechanical is because I'm creating processes that are only the same as if you were using a prop, but I'm eradicating the prop. But I might sometimes use the prop to bolster, like you heard me talking about the anagram with Lloyd earlier. I might use the prop to bolster the anagram.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So don't think for a second I'm saying to go out and just go with nothing at a corporate gig, stand there and expect to do 2 hours walking from place to place. I mean, don't get me wrong, I could quite easily do that. Like I could get you your bank card out now and I could tell you numbers off your bank card through the screen. I don't need you to, you know what I mean? I'm not like, but is that propless? I'm not using a prop here, but you're pulling a bank card out. I don't know if that constitutes propless. It don't mean that. Do you get what I'm saying to you? It's like a very difficult definition. But when I use a mobile phone and I'm asking you to calculate something that you couldn't calculate mentally, but you're doing it at a distance, is that Propless? I don't know the answer to that question, but it doesn't mean that I'm having to use an app. I'm not having to use a billet. I'm using everything in my environment, and I'm taking advantage of every single moment. And that's what this set teaches you. So whether it's selfish that you just want to know methods, then there's methods. Whether it's how you want to dress this stuff and make it have a solid presentation like you would if it were a regular trick. I've done that for you. If this is going to fail, like something I know you were going to touch upon is like how's it going to, if it fails, what you're going to do.
Yeah.
I've covered that. So I'll give you one example. I'll give you one example of a really silly method that's going to fail, and I'll show you this. It's really easy. So let's imagine that my introduction, I'm walking around, I've got hold of this. So I walk up to you, and I have pre-written this. I normally write in front of you, but I walk up to you at a gig. I've got hold of this piece of card. I'll ask you two questions. Firstly, out the gate. First question: why am I holding bits of card, and why am I messing around with pens? You might think, well, that's your job. You're paid. You're going to do that, and that's great. That's fine. But I like to introduce this, and I like to make it so that it seems consistent. So let's say that I walked up to you and I said, "What's your name?"
Craig.
Craig, it's a pleasure to meet you. I'm Pete. Now, I want to show you something. People think it's easy to just guess what somebody's thinking of. It's not. It's almost impossible. And you've genuinely got to use your intuition to do it. So I'm going to tell you this. I'm thinking of a friend's name. It's a male friend of mine, and it's not somebody that you know personally. But if I ask you to try guess the name, you'd be wrong. So we'll start small. We're going to start with a letter. So don't try guessing what it is. I'm going to tell you this is not the first letter in your name. It's another letter. So get another letter in mind, and then think of the first male name that just pops into your head that starts with that letter. So when you got one?
Got one.
Okay, so what name are you thinking of?
Richard.
Richard. Now that's just a random name. Now look, just to show you, you were miles out. The reason that you were miles out is because you just guessed. But now I'm going to give you the ability to be able to do this. So I want you to take this from me. So now I hand you this. You take that. I'm thinking of a place. Look at me, and I'm going to send it to you. Now, thought reading's about one person sending a thought, another person receiving it. So I just want you to write the place down you're thinking of there, fold it and fold it again, and I'll hold on to it like this, and we'll see how close you got this time. So now I can use whatever other method I want, but in 20 seconds there, I've set up the presentation to try. Let's say this were a Cyforce. I just wrote something at random here, but let's say it were a Cyforce. In 20 seconds, I've given you this. 20 seconds, I've showed you can't just guess. If the Cyforce hits, you open it, miracle in the first 20 seconds of performance, 30 seconds of performance. If it misses, I've now introduced the fact. I said, look, you can see you can't just guess, but now I'm going to give you the ability to do this. So hold on to this for me. I'm thinking of this. Now you're going to write it down, fold it, and I hold on to it because you were just holding it a minute ago. So we're role reversing. And now I can use whatever traditional method that I'm going to use, and now I can tell you exactly what it is. So to you, when you leave there, I'm either creating a piece of influence or a piece of mind reading that ultimately ends back at this point with the ability in the middle there to be able to take a chance at something that's a miracle that I could get for free. So why, like it's like there's no reason why not to sprinkle that in there. It's like the old thing where, if I'm doing Out of This World, for example, and I put these on the table, and these are sat down on the table in front of me, and I said, right, Craig, just name the first number that pops in your head. What is it?
12.
Sorry, from 1 to 10 with playing cards.
Oh, sorry. 7.
7. We have reds or blacks. Take one from me. Which you want to take?
Black.
So that leaves me with the red cards, right? So just change between heart and diamond. Keep changing, keep changing, keep changing, and stop. Now, I don't know why you stopped between the heart and diamond there, but 1 second later, this would have been different, right?
Yeah.
In fact, if you were to change one more time, where would you be?
Diamond.
And you could have done that. It's fair to say.
Yeah.
So I stopped you specifically where?
Heart.
So the 7 of hearts.
7 of hearts, yeah.
Yeah, so this starts with one card, the 7 of hearts, and that'd sit on the table, right? So if I'm doing Out of This World, and I know that I've got to put a black and a red card face up, I'll start with having that on there, and I'll go for the hit. But I know with magicians, what's really great is if I asked you to think of a number from 1 to 10, you wouldn't have gone for the 7. But by making it seem like it could be any number and going, just give me a number and I do this, you go 12. And I go, no, sorry, I should have specified from 1 to 10. There's double the amount of pressure on you now. And even magicians go for the number 7. right? I
Yeah.
know that little tip of leaving that open, but now these cards are sat in front of you on the table. Yeah, of course, I'm doing the equivocate very quickly there with the reds and blacks, then using the tombola principle by Michael Murray, and then I turn it round, bang. Let's say that doesn't hit. And you said to me the four of spades. So I just go through and I go, okay, so we'll take out the four of spades and we'll put that down. I'll also take the four of hearts out. So this is the aim. And now I'm moving to out of this world. And you never even know that that first bit were ever meant to be anything. But why would I
Yeah.
not sprinkle 10 seconds in there with the ability to get that seven of hearts when it's sat in front of you and have a miracle? So now you think about this. I know I'm moving it out of this world. I know it's going to be incredible anyway. But by sprinkling in that psychological force of the card at the beginning there, now what I've done is I've opened up the ability to be able to have one extra miracle on the bridge to get into that routine. But if
Yeah.
that doesn't happen, you never know that it were meant to happen. Right. So
Yeah.
all you're doing within 10 seconds is giving yourself. So you imagine sprinkling that over the top of everything that you're already doing, even if you don't do Propless Mentalism. Just imagine sprinkling it in, but nobody would ever know that that's what you were meant to be doing or not. It just goes past, but you only ever reveal it when it happens. So now all of a sudden, there, if you manage to hit on 5 of those out of the 10, you've got 5 extra miracles in your set that you never knew were going to be there with little to no labor. And you're still ending at the same outcome that you'd be ending on if you were doing your out of this world anyway. And that's what this set's about. It's about showing you where you can place this stuff.
I love what you're saying here about sprinkling it in and not making, you see a lot of people. Okay, this is for me the biggest problem with what we consider to be Propless mentalism, in my opinion. It's a little bit like Tobias Tostel. Now, I love Tobias. I think he's just brilliant. And you watch Tobias do Liquify or Liquid Spectrum, that illusionist, it looks amazing. I've seen him do it live. It just looks incredible. And a lot of his stuff reads as easy, and you can pick it up very, very quickly, and you can do it, but it takes a lot of effort to make that sort of thing look good. And that's why we see a lot of bad performances of some of Toby's stuff, because they haven't put the effort or the practice in that it requires to make it look as good as Tobias makes it look. And I think that's the same problem with Propless mentalism. I think that there's a lot of people that will see somebody like you or somebody else, and they'll be like, oh my God, I want to do that. They'll buy a big book or they'll watch a big project, and then they'll go out and they'll just do a ton of Propless stuff. And I've seen people post on forums going, I've just bought this book. I've spent a few weeks, months studying it. I'm going and doing my next restaurant, and I'm not taking any props with me. I'm going full on Propless. Yeah. And what happens is they don't put the practice in it that it deserves, and it ends up looking crap.
But then that's a good
And
thing. That's a good thing. I think that's a good thing, and not for the audience at that particular venue, but that's a good thing because there's no way to teach somebody a valuable look. When I was younger, I got told that if you want to teach a kid to swim, throw it in a pool.
yeah, my dad did that to me.
Right, and I'm not saying that's the way to parent. I'm not saying that I do that. I'm not saying that, but that's the way a lot of the generation before us were taught, right? And
Yeah.
it's like, and maybe now that you're terrified of water, I don't know. Maybe it's one of those.
No, 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 no.
But it's like my nan had a magic trick performed on her back in I don't know when, and she hates magic because of it. So I'm not saying that you can't ruin somebody's perspective of it, but you can do that whether you're a competent magician or not. You might say something, do something that they don't agree with. You know what I mean? It might just be a topic that they don't like to talk about. Everybody has different preferences, but the fact is that it's really easy to let somebody go and do that. But what the difference is, though, is that what magicians do, they'll go and do a set that's entirely propless after doing 2 minutes of research and 2 minutes of work, and then come back and instead of standing there and going, you know what, I should have taken my time and learnt a little bit more, they blame me. And that's not my problem. Like, it's not my issue if you're having a shit performance. That's down to your rehearsal time and the time that you've put in and not understanding and watching carefully what it is that I'm saying. I can't be at that gig to perform it for you. You know what I mean? And it's like, I'm giving you the tools here, but it's like I explain it this way in the set. Every single tool is a tool in a toolbox, and you have to know what tool it is you're using for what job. That takes time and experience. So I say, take one of these ideas and try it out in this safe space, this safe environment. I say that openly. Now, if you've got a hammer, you go, yeah, it's powerful. It's powerful, but it's not going to work to put screws in the wall. It might be too powerful to tap in place a tile without cracking it. You've got to know that this job requires this tool. And when I'm there, like I've done it long enough to know, you could say to me anything. You could say to me, right, Pete, I want you now to guess my PIN code properly. And I could probably, well, I could do it. And I wouldn't even bat an eyelid at being able to move into that and get you into the right space to be able to do that. You could say to me, I want you to do, why is your word test better than mother of all book tests? And my answer to that question is there's the equal amount of fishing with the mother of all book tests to what I'd need to be able to reveal a word. That's a fact. If I were going to do a book test, I wouldn't use mother of all book tests. I'd use the AA book test by Mark Paul or AAA book test. The AAA book test by Mark Paul, with my added touches and subtleties that I've come up with from years of performing the AAA book test. If I were doing mother of all book tests, I mean, you think about what mother. Let's break down mother of all book tests and look at it. Have you ever used mother of all book tests? I don't know if it's something that you
Yeah,
performed.
yeah. No,
Right.
I have. Yeah,
So, okay, let's have a look at what the restrictions are. Okay, turn to any page, and now you've got to pick a word that's long. So that's the first
yeah,
restriction. Okay, so now you've picked a word that's long. Let's look at the first letter. Tell me what that first letter is. That's basically what you're
yeah,
saying. Tell me what it is. Okay, now you've
yeah,
told me what it is, I can tell you what it is. So for that information that you're giving me, if I said to you, I'm thinking of a name, it's a male name and it begins with the letter F. What name do you think it is?
Frank.
That's exactly the name I'm thinking of. But it didn't take you much to think of because you can only pick between Fred and Frank.
Yeah,
That'll make you
yeah,
a mind reader. You know what I mean? It makes you somebody who can select from a limited choice of a series of choices. Now, I'm not saying that mother of all book tests is perceived as that. It's not. And I'm not denouncing the mother of all book tests. What I'm saying is that first letter were always a problem for me. So I found ways to get that first letter where they wasn't verbalizing it or they didn't know they were giving me information. I had to fix that. But at the same time, I've got word divinations that are equally as quick as that require no book. So, but they don't have to tell me any letter. So why would I go down the path at that point of picking up a book in a restaurant where there are no books? I wouldn't do it. I'd rather text somebody through an imaginary process or have them pick any. I'd rather give somebody a billet because it's smaller to carry a pack of billets than it is a book.
yeah,
Whereas if I'm in an airport, Murrayville book test probably still wouldn't work because I'm carrying the book. That's why the AAA book test has always been more beneficial for me, is because you can just grab anybody's book that they're using and use any book.
yeah.
But if I'm on stage, now that's a totally different thing. Does it make sense when I'm on stage if if the backdrop is that there's some books and I grab one and I'm doing something? Well, yeah, completely. It makes more sense than it does me carrying table to table an old copy of whatever book it is I've got in my pocket. That's not to say that you shouldn't do that. That's just to say my rules that I set myself are that I don't think that I want to carry a paperback book around in my pocket there and this there when I could be writing on my business card or whatever else and it's much quicker, or I could just be doing it with nothing. So there's a time and a place for everything, but let these people fail, but just don't blame me. If you've not taken the time, look, it's the same as a pass. There's a guy, I've said it, there's this local club, it's called Al, Magic Al, he's like amazing. He can do a pass that's incredible. And in the real world, it's a waste of time. And the reason it's a waste of time is because nobody ever sees it. So it's
No,
not, but it's only beneficial to you because you got away with it in the moment and you're like, yes, that's great. For me, I can literally take the cards, do this, and I'm in the same position. But the
yeah,
audience actually perceive this as more fair because they've seen me mix the cards up or cut them. So it's detrimental to have an incredible pass, but that doesn't mean that there won't be a place where you'll be able to find it, you'll be able to use that. And it's a tool that he spent time working and practicing. And all I'm saying is, if you're going to learn a piece of Propless mentalism, learn a piece of Propless mentalism in and out, take your time to learn each element of it, because the difference between a propped piece of mentalism and a propless piece of mentalism is one thing, and it's this. It's the difference, but magic, it doesn't matter. If somebody turns around and says, show me a magic trick, and you're used to doing tricks with cards, and you say, oh, I'm sorry, I don't have a pack of cards on me, that's fine.
yeah,
If you're supposed to be a mind reader, and someone turns around and says to you, yo, you're that mind reader, show me a piece of mind reading, and you turn around and go, I'm sorry, I don't have my bits of card with me.
yeah. Yeah.
It's entirely so you know, learn everything that you can. It's like why would you not want to? Do you know what I mean? And for the price, like there's tequila hustlers on there. Like if you don't know what tequila hustlers, it's a brilliant witch hand routine. It's a
Mm.
really nice little witch hand routine, and it's you can learn it in less than 5 minutes. So you can learn that in less than 5 minutes. But it doesn't mean like look, let me point this out. I'll say this, and this is where I'll end the and I want you to ask me some more questions because I really do like going down these. We'll do a couple
Yeah,
more.
yeah, yeah.
Firstly,
Yeah.
imagine that you do a PK touches, which is strong. It's going to work every time. You reveal someone's star sign and date of birth, which is strong. You know it's going to work every single time. And when I say every single time, outside of the same failures that could exist if somebody doesn't write a word down properly on a billet or doesn't follow what you're asking. If you say to somebody, "I'm going to turn away, pick a card," and they go, "Yep," and you go, "Right, put it back in," and you close the deck up, and they didn't really pick a card, there's got to be a room for certain failures that could exist in any performance.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what it is. It could be somebody doesn't say something clearly enough and means that this bit's going to go wrong, or somebody could pick a card, peek it, put it back in, and lie about what the card is at the end, or forget the card. There's got to be a buffer for failure in every single type of. So when I'm using definitives like every time, I mean excluding the buffer of failure. But
Yeah.
PK touches, I know I could do that successfully 99.9% of the time. Isabella star three, I can literally sit with somebody, and if they know their star sign and date of birth, not only reveal their star sign and date of birth, but the name they're thinking of with nothing. Under the guise of reading their palm. It feels real, it looks real. Then I can go into the childish games that I used to play whilst I were at school. And I could say, right, let's decide who we're going to play with. And I play a game of rock, paper, scissors that's going to work every single time. And I nail the rock, paper, scissors, which is fun and interesting and requires nothing more than hands. So now I then move into, okay, another childish game that I used to play was Which Hand. And I could do a Which Hand routine using Tequila Hustler with a coin or no coin. But as I said, the point of reference is often better using something for people to react to. All four of those things are a solid set at a table that require nothing. So if you did want to go from table to table and perform strong pieces of mentalism, there's 4 pieces that you could do instantly with nothing. If you wanted to finish with a billet or you wanted to finish with a prediction or whatever, you could do that. And you could, but that's again, that does that constitute the use of a prop? I don't know. I'm not here to define what you think propless mentalism is, but I know if I've got 30 seconds a minute and I don't have a billet with me, I'll never struggle to reproduce what I can do with a billet.
Yeah.
Or a book test, or you know what I mean. I'm never going to be caught with my pants down. That's the and I do it at paid gigs. I told you like Hugo Boss booked me just to read palms, and I could have said anything I wanted. There's a whole section on the Grail about readings. Now, if I said to you, and I just try this for me, just try this. If you're watching this now and you're a professional performer, and I know you are, go to a gig, Craig.
Hmm.
Say to somebody, would you rather me show you something with these cards that I consider incredible? Or would you rather me look at you, tell you your star sign, give you a reading about your life, and try to finish by guessing your date of birth? Ask ask the next set of females that you meet that question, and just give me a response back on which one they choose each time. Or 9 times out of 10, I can tell you that they choose the personal element every single time. And that's why it's beneficial to learn Barnum statements, which are on the set. It's beneficial to know about how to give somebody a reading using nothing, which is on the set. Louis Laval, we did nearly a 4 hour interview about readings and how to just walk up to somebody with nothing and read them. Like, as a power, that's a strong thing. Whether it's a minute or 30 seconds of a reading where you hit on a few things and they leave that situation, and you don't need cards and billets and this and that for a reading, because it feels so personal to the person that you're giving the reading for, that there's nothing that you could do, in my opinion, that tops that, whether it's a prop or not, because people don't remember what you do, they remember the way you make them feel. And like you say, you owe it to your audience to give them the best experience possible. So like, but I love it. Ask me some more and I'll be quick with my answers because I
No,
love.
I no, no, I'm loving this, Pete. I really am. I remember sitting many, many years ago, back in the early 2000s, in a bar with Simon Lovell. And I went up to him and I said, Simon, teach me how to do the classic force, because I couldn't do it at the time. And he spent about an hour teaching me how to do the classic force. And then he said, the best place to learn to do the classic force is anytime you get someone to pick a card.
True.
Because you just get them to pick card, force the card on them every single time. Doesn't matter whether they go for the force card or not. It's going to get you really good at it. And that was the best piece of advice I ever got. It sounds like that's what you're suggesting here. You're
It's the
not
same.
saying go and yeah, you're not saying, hey, go and buy this and then just turn your entire act Propless. You're just saying take one element and try it out. It doesn't work. It's not a problem because you're going to move into something else. And you're going to, and then what happened with me with the classic force is I got to a point that I could do it every single time because I'd just done it so much when I didn't need to learn it. And it sounds like that's the same sort of thing that you're suggesting here, right?
And that's it. And then I'll ask you this question. So let's say you left that situation with Sam Lavelle and you went to your next gig, and somebody recorded you doing a classic force, and that got leaked on the internet. You doing it. Would it be Simon Lavelle's
Mhm.
fault that you couldn't classic force somebody a card?
No,
It's not
not at
my
all.
fault if you can't follow the instructions that I'm giving you on a set the way that I'm giving you it. It's like not my problem. And that doesn't mean that the whole propless industry doesn't work. What it means is that a few bad performances of bad performers is not the way that we dictate whether something's good or not. Like Tobias Dostal, like his stuff, you said it yourself, he does it amazingly. And like that's it. Like all Tobias is doing is bottling up lightning and selling his perspective on this art form. And if you go and reproduce it and it isn't lightning that you're ending up capturing, but it's a fart in a bottle, that's not Tobias Dostal's problem.
No, not at
Like,
all.
and that's to say, I'm not here sitting and saying that people won't be able to do this stuff. Because look, let me ask, like, really stupid question. Have you ever heard of grey elephants in Denmark?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Well, that's a propless piece of mentalism that works every single time. But why does it work every single time? Or it works every time if somebody can do simple basic math.
Yeah.
But the reason it works every time is because it's a procedure that they go through to get to an outcome.
Yeah.
That's only the same that's on this set. Everything there is procedural, but I've reduced the procedure down to the minimum that it can be so that the biggest presentation you can wrap around it and customize. It's not the same as before where I'd be going to you, okay, think of a letter in the alphabet for me, Craig. Got one?
Okay.
Now
Yep.
think of a random number for me.
Okay.
Now think of what the number is of the position of your letter in the alphabet. And now move forwards whatever number see what I mean? It's just too much. It's
Yeah.
like it's
Yeah.
too much. It's like I don't want that. I don't want it to look like that. The way I want it to feel is as quick as this. I want it to feel as quick as this. Think of a random letter for me, Craig. It doesn't matter what letter you go for. You could change your mind as many times as you want.
Got it.
Now, in fact, I don't want you to feel like you're pressured into this. So if you're thinking of a consonant, jump to a vowel. If it's a vowel, jump to a consonant. So you're somewhere brand new.
Yep.
And now create a nice, long, interesting word that starts with this letter, but something you can imagine visualizing and touching, even if you've never done that before, seen it before. And if you can't do it,
Got
stay
it.
in that same box. Okay, you've got something perfect. Now, this is a completely fair choice. There's thousands and thousands of things you could be thinking of. That's
Yeah.
what I want it to feel like. And now I want to be able to reveal that. And I can. That's my point. That's my
Yeah.
point. It's like it did it. I'm not asking you to do math and jump forwards in the alphabet. I want it to be as quick as that 20, 30 seconds. Now I could dress
Yeah.
that with a countdown presentation. Now I want to, and I want to know that I've got, if I'm fishing for what it is you're thinking of, like I want to know that I've got the safeguard of the backup. I call it the insurance, the safety net that leads me to that successful that conclusion if I don't want to reveal it verbally. But let me
Yeah.
ask you, I'll ask you three questions. Were it difficult for you to think of a letter?
No.
Were it difficult for you to change your mind?
No.
Did the thing that you were thinking of feel like a free choice?
Yeah.
Now, did I have to go through the mother of all book test process to find out the first letter and work out anything else? No.
Oh,
But now I'd go for what I think in this environment it'd be, and I'd fish for it, asking two questions that don't seem like questions, and then I have my outs that are prepped. That's not me relying on handing you a billet. I'm saying to you, whatever you're thinking of right now, and I talked to you briefly about what my technique is for this earlier on, that'd be designed as an out here. If I notice, oh, he's going off on a path I don't want, okay, that's been sat there the entire time. Open it up and go to this. Done. Like
yeah.
I don't want it to be. How long did it take me to get you to think of a letter? Now change your mind. 20 seconds, 15 seconds.
If that, yeah, 15.
So that's what I'm saying. If you can't design a process properly that looks like that or sits consistently with that, then that's to me not a good thing. So, like for example, your thing, the thing you're thinking of, pretty big.
Very big, yeah.
Yeah, rough to touch.
No?
Okay, you thinking of an aeroplane.
Yes.
So that's what I want. I want it to be I want it to be like that. Do you know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
it's mother of all and if it's not that at that point, and you go no, and I go, what is it? And then I go, you're not going to believe this. Do you know, earlier on, I sat down, I was making a note, and I thought today I were going to meet somebody just like you. And you might not believe me. I'm not going to touch my phone. I'll tell you the code, open it up, go to my notes app and open it. And then there's a note with a reading. And at the bottom, it says that, so the reading's personal to them. They get a hit. And then they read the exact word, not app based, not anything else that they were thinking of. Like
Yeah.
that's, to me, what it's a powerful ending, and I have my chance at hitting it. Like I just did mother of all book tests without a book through the screen. You could have thought of any word, you change your mind. It took me 20 seconds. I can dress that and present it however I want. And I know exactly what somebody's thinking of. And with two questions, one, this is fairly big, right? And then they go yes or no. And then I ask you, I go, by big, I mean bigger than a coin. It's an object that's bigger than a coin. Yes. Then I tell you exactly what it is at that point. Done. So it doesn't seem like a miss. But it's like that's what it should feel like, and I just think that it's got a bad rap because of all the bad that were out there.
But here's the thing, how do people, and I'm sure you covered this on the Grail, so you don't have to spend too long on this, but how do you get good at, like, you're phenomenal at this. Like, when you make a mistake, it doesn't feel like you've made a mistake because 3 seconds later you reveal something else and that's all forgotten. But that's a skill that takes a lot of time, I would imagine. Like, how do you get to the point where, okay, you're reading this, you understand the concepts, you understand the methodologies, you understand the system, you get this, but to the point that it becomes second nature like it does with you, Pete?
Right, okay, so I'm going to give my advice, but I'm going to back a question first. Let's say that you're working in the real world and somebody picks a card and puts it back in the deck. You know it's that card because you've classic forced it, and then they lie about what it is. What do you do?
If they lie, but probably just palm it out and produce it from somewhere or something.
There you go. You just answered your question. Like, why do you know that?
Because it's
Experience.
happened. Yeah,
It has to
yeah,
happen first for you to know that. You know that you've got an SUC, or you know you've got a card to wallet, or you know you can palm it and put it under a glass. And then what
yeah.
you've got is when you put it under the glass and you reveal it and you say, here's the bit that nobody expected. And I'd take credit. I'd go, be really honest. You changed your mind as well, didn't you? And they go, yeah. And you go, you were thinking of that other card earlier. Yes. And now you get the hit for both. But that comes with real world experience of knowing. And if they say no, you go, okay, but you're either going to get a yes or a no, then it makes no difference, right? So my point is that anything that could go wrong, if you hand somebody a billet and they don't write properly on it, you only have to experience that once to know that this is how I deal with this. And
Mm.
so the way to practice for that is really simple. Mentalism is not like magic. Magic, you can hand somebody a card and you can say, pick one out, take one, this is this. With mentalism, you can't really do that because there's going to be different environments, different techniques. It's going to be loud sometimes. And that's another thing. Sometimes you find yourself in loud environments and it's very difficult to perform any kind of mentalism in a loud environment, right? But it's this. I always say this. I always call it the six, I call it 6 varying degrees of practice. And so what I do is I sit at my table, or it could be here, it could be anywhere, bus station, a bus, wherever you want. And I go, right, from left to right, I'm going to imagine there's 6 people in front of me. And the first person, what I'm going to do is I'm going to perform this routine to the first person. This person's receptive. This person's happy and wants to watch what I'm doing. They're going to follow everything perfectly, the exact way that I've been taught it. And now I get a reaction. And I imagine that reaction in my head and I play it a couple of times. Then what I do is I imagine the second person. I imagine performing for that person. And I go, this person wants to see as well. This person's not trying to catch me out. But this person, they're not paying as much attention to as the first person. So what I do with the second person now is when I'm rehearsing it, I'll repeat specific instructions. Now, the third person, this person's not paying attention, but not trying to mess me up. So I need to guide this performance to a successful conclusion Do I think this person's too far gone, or do I think I can rope them back? How do I get them to pay attention? So I rehearse for that eventuality. Then the fourth person just can't follow my instructions. They're not trying to trip me up, but they just can't follow my instructions. So what do I do here? Am I going to reach for a billet? Am I going to ask them to write it down and give them something they can do? The fifth person is purposefully going out of their way now to question what it is that I'm doing. Are they going to follow what I'm asking? Are they stress testing it? What route am I going to go down with that person? The last person is going to be a real pain in the ass. They're not going to write anything down. They're not going to touch anything. They're not going to let me perform. They're going to just treat me like an asshole. So what am I going to do with that person? So now what happens is every single performance that I go into, I treat as a piece of equivoque. I treat it as magician's choice. And the first line or the way the person is with me right at the beginning, I know exactly which path it is I'm going to perform and how I'm going to perform that routine because I've rehearsed it 6 different ways. And so now I'm not nervous. Like, for example, if somebody pretends to pick a card out and put it back in and they haven't picked one out, and I know they've not pulled it out because when I've culled something to the top, it's not right, or my stack's not changed, or whatever. I know that that's not happened. What do? I know how to roll the performance now because I've practiced that for 5 and 6. Which one of these people are they at 5 and 6? What do I go into? Change my direction before it gets past the point of no return. And that's it. And that's a very valuable way to practice this stuff. And I've never seen anybody else talking about it like that. But it is every piece that you do should be classed as equivoque. The same as I talked to you earlier about how a one ahead doesn't necessarily need to be a one ahead as a trick. These magic concepts can exist in the choreography of the performance. Like the first person's behaving like this. Okay, if they're behaving like this, I need to act like this. This person's behaving like that. I need to act like this. And that's it. And you're either going to practice that intentionally, or what's going to happen is you're going to get into the real world and you're going to find it out accidentally. And that's it. That's it. So my thing would be try it out. I've given you in this talk an insurance where you're not going to know whether it's hit or not. You saw the 7 of Hearts thing, nice, seamless. You saw the word revelation, nice, seamless. You saw the performance on Lloyd. Like none of that stuff's meant.
Well, I'm about to play that in a minute. Yeah.
Okay, but none of that stuff has ever felt like. None of that stuff has ever felt like. It's never felt like I didn't know what I were doing. It never felt like it were a detraction from using a billet. Now your preference might be just give them a billet, and that's fine.
So let me ask you one more question. One more question about this. We talked about Britain's Got Talent earlier on. Now you're massively successful, and you've got a career people could only dream of. But let's just play make believe for a minute. You've never been discovered. Nobody knows who you are, but you have all of your skills that you have doing Propless Mentalism, and you can do it as well as you do now. You've just got your big break. You've got a chance to go and perform in front of Simon Cowell and the judges on Britain's Got Talent. This can be the thing that makes you, knowing how that program is, and that it can be misinterpreted sometimes. Would you still go in and do Propless Mentalism? Because there is still an element, even though you do it so well, there is an element of,
I absolutely would.
Okay, I wanted to know if there were situations where
no,
it wouldn't
and
be
the reason for that is this: would you go in there and would you perform sponge balls for Simon Cowell?
not a chance.
Right, or like the sponge dong, or I mean, there's as I said earlier, I view every single thing that I do as a tool, and that tool I use when it's the right time to use it. And that's it. It's like you need to look at all your magic like that. Again, when I say a lot of magicians and mentalists, I always feel like I'm blanket terming and I hate it. I hate myself for it, but I'm not. I'm just saying what I see. So if you disagree with it, then that's fine. Your observations are different to mine. But what I've seen is that I've worked with a lot of magicians. You'll have a set and you'll do this set at this table, and then you'll go to the next table and you'll do the same set. And then you have a set that when you get to the next table, you'll have the same set. I'm not saying you personally, I'm saying a lot of magicians have a set. And they'll have 3 or 4 things that they do and maybe sprinkle one thing in every so often where they feel it's a bit of an extra vibe at this table. I don't have that. And I've never had that. And the reason that I've never had that is I might know that one of these things I want to do, and I know it bangs and it hits hard. But what I'm doing there is if I sit down at a table and you tell me that you're a psychologist, I might want to show you something that I frame up as a piece. It's interesting. I saw this really interesting article on pop psychology, and then I'll go into it. But I mean, give me a profession.
An engineer.
An engineer. So engineers think of things really intricately. And what you do is you have specific systems that you put in place to make the outcome of things work the exact way that you want them to work. I've been designing a system where I play a game a lot like 20 questions, where I've built an algorithm inside my head to figure out what somebody's thinking of in less than 3 questions. And I might go into 20 questions because it fits into the scope of what the engineer does. If you just give me one more profession, it doesn't matter what it is.
Okay. Somebody, a waitress, waiter.
Okay, so you're a waiter. I want to show you something that I think is really interesting, and this wouldn't work with anybody else that's at this table unless they had a similar profession. What I want you to do for me is take this stack of change, and I want you to hold on to that stack of change and just feel the weight of it. Now, using the weight of that, could you tell me how much is inside that hand? No? Okay, well, if I took this penny and I put it in this hand, can you feel the weight difference? Yeah. Using that weight difference, can you tell me how much is in there? No. But I bet you'd agree that if you held different coins in this hand over periods of time until it felt about the same, you better roughly guess how much is in there, right? Yeah. All you'd have to do is hold different amounts of coins over a period of time. Yeah. You do that all the time, you just don't think about it. So think back to when you held that amount of change and tell me how much is in there. £3 and 14 pence. Count it out for everybody. And now there's exactly £3 and 14 pence. It's like, why would I not do exact change there?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it feels so personal to that one person. I have an artist there. Why would I not do a drawing duplication? I have a writer
Yeah.
there. Why would I not talk about books and do something that's to do with language? It's like you can create as you speak, and it's if tell me how that gets any more personal. It's not just exact change anymore. Do you know what I mean? It's not just a version of exact change anymore. And the method for that might be as simple as having somebody write down £3 and 14 as I'm ditching coins into my pocket and counting them out. And I've just peaked at £3 and 14, and they're holding any amount of change. It doesn't matter. But the point is that, like, I'm not bound by the constraints of what is. I see everything as a tool. So I see it all as paints and paintbrushes and hammers and nails and screws and drills. And what I do is I go, right, okay, I'm sat here. What's the tool for the job this time? So to answer your question, no. Maybe I'd go and do PK touches. That's propless. Maybe I know it works, but it's been done to death. So I think about how I'd use it. And then I always ask myself one simple question. And it's the same when I'm consulting. And then what? That's what I always ask myself. Okay, I'm going to have one person feel it. Okay, great. They're going to do this piece where they psychokinetically manage to feel the same emotions, the same feel. And then I go, okay, and then what? What's the cherry on the cake? What's the thing that separates it from what it's been before? And that's ultimately what these talent shows want. They want to see the and then what? It's like I'm going to do Out of This World on TV. Okay. And then what? The Out of This World were perfect for Stephen Bartlett because Stephen Bartlett were used to making blind decisions. He invested all the time using his intuition. So why wouldn't I, when writing, decide that that'd be a good piece for him? Okay, and then what? Okay, and then I want to see the cards as they're being dealt. That's where the and then what comes from. Do you know what I mean? It's like that's filmed through a glass table, and that seems to be so. So to answer your question, no, I don't. I'm not. Like I said earlier, I don't view the only reason I debated back those points about Propless mentalism is because I was debating for the reason for its existence. I don't think it
Yeah.
should be the be all and end all. I don't. I don't think. Look, every routine has a compromise or a point in it that shouldn't exist. It doesn't need to exist. You pick any trick, try to, outside of doing real magic, try to tell me a trick that doesn't have a compromise. Like
Yeah.
the invisible deck is a solid self-working piece of mentalism, but can somebody pick the deck up and spread it themselves? No, there's your compromise. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's very rare for you to find a piece of magic or mentalism that doesn't have a compromise. Or like PK touches, if you could do it for real, why would you need to go stand next to them? Or why would you need to wave your hand in front of the face? Or why would you need to have them sit down in a chair? You know what I mean? There's a compromise, and that compromise is always existing. It's just, is this the right compromise for this situation? And I go through
Yeah.
that on the set. Like I go through the reasons for Propless Mentalism. I go for the reasons against Propless Mentalism. I go for the reasons to pick up a prop. I go for the throughout the theatricality of it. I talk about the difference between just picking up a bottle cap and doing tequila stuff with a bottle cap and nothing on my version of Witch Hand. But anyway, I'm rabbiting on now. I think I've gone around my point enough.
No, it's brilliant. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to play about a 15-minute performance of Pete earlier on with me and Lloyd before we started this interview. Uh, Watch Lloyd's face. He blew Lloyd away. He blew me away. And there's a lot that people are seeing here. You're seeing star sign divinations, dates of birth, playing cards, names. It just shows just how versatile this is. And it was very hard for me to play devil's advocate because I watched this performance just before starting this interview. And I've always been kind of skeptical about propless mentalism, for want of a better word. Having seen that firsthand, I'm just like, Jesus Christ,
But
I'm all in.
just to press a point before you play this, I won't be. It won't be something that I like. I know that you wanted to see me doing the reveals a few times, a few different bits. What I don't want is people to think that I'd be doing this back to back. I won't do ambitious card 4 times in a row. This is just
Yeah,
literally to show you the stress testing of what it is that we were doing, and yeah, you can play it. Maybe it'd be good for you to play it and then come back and then like cut
yeah. That's
out of it. You do what you want with it. It doesn't make a difference to me. But yeah, just enjoy it.
well. Let's have a look at this, and then we'll get back to the
So
interview.
before you leave, Lloyd, I know you're about to jump off and you don't know what I'm about to ask, but just go on your phone for a second. This is not an app, it's not technology, but I'm going to get you to do this so that you've got something in your head that's completely random. Can you go on Google and can you search a random star sign and a date of birth that you definitely know that I don't know? So not one that's on social media. You can punch in a random date if you want, tag star sign on the end. Now, Craig, when people are watching this, they're probably going to think that I've given them some sort of app to go to or whatever else. If you want, you don't have to use the phone, but just tell me when you've got one in mind. We'll give them a few seconds to do that. Now, bear in mind, Craig, people wouldn't usually be having to do this. They'd know their own star sign and date of birth.
Yeah,
Lock the phone and place it face down for me. Please don't forget the star sign or the date of
I
birth.
won't. I won't.
So now I'm going to refer to it as if it's yours, and I'm going to refer to it as if we've just met in a bar. So the tales of whatever it is that I do have been spreading around the bar, and you've come forwards to me and said, "Can you read my palm?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll give it a go." Now, Lloyd, we're going to refer to it as if it's yours. Is there 1 or 2 digits in the day you were born?
2.
So just hold both your hands out like this for me. And imagine the star sign written in the air as a word for me. Yeah. Think of the amount of letters in the star sign's name, Lloyd.
Yeah.
Just see it like Leo really large. Look at me for a second in your head. Start mixing those letters up. There's an R in there, right?
Yeah.
And an A as well, yeah?
Yeah.
There's not an I in there, is there?
Yeah. There is.
This is where you're going to start to lock me out. There's an S in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And an E.
Yeah.
You're not an Aries, are you?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So when I first met you, I instantly assumed you were born in March. And I'm glad I didn't not trust you are March, right? I'm glad I trusted my feelings there. So just show me your palms like this for a second. Okay. Now just turn them toward yourself. Imagine in your left palm there's the first digit in the day, and in the right palm there's the second digit. Now I know it's not, but let's say it were the 15th. The 1 would be in the left hand, the 5 would be in the right hand. Ignore the first digit, just close that hand for me. And just stare at that second digit as if it was a word. Just see it like 8 written really largely there, right? Are you thinking of the 28th of March?
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. And you could have picked any date of birth, you could have picked any star sign. And when I sit down with somebody and I meet them for the first time, that's exactly how I reveal the exact day and month that they were born. It's cool, right? You can
Like,
see why I don't
what
need to use the billet.
the hell?
Greg,
just to show
Yeah.
you.
there we go. And people are going to think that that's some app or that you said there's not. If it were yours, that's exactly how it looked. Greg,
Like,
just to show you something, imagine a random 2-digit number like 98, but don't use 9 or 8 in your number because I said them.
Yeah.
And imagine yours written out as words. So if it was 98, it'd be Nintyeihty, right? But tell me when you got that.
Got it.
So right now you're thinking of a random 2-digit number that you imagined writing out as a word. Just go to the
Yeah.
very first letter for me. And
Yeah.
just the first male name that pops in your head that starts with this letter. But don't go for a unisex name. So, Tony, Terry, Sam's questionable, Sean would be definitive.
Yeah.
Got one? Now, if you can abbreviate the name, abbreviate. If you can't, it doesn't matter. But just think of the amount of letters in this name for me, Craig. So this is like four,
Yeah.
five, four,
Five. Yeah, five.
five. Do you know somebody with this name?
No.
Okay. Next time you meet somebody called Frank, say hello from me.
Fuck.
Cool, right?
Wow. Whoa.
Lloyd,
Sorry, I'm still.
yeah, take your left hand like this for me, Lloyd. And just for a second, just let your hand relax. Take a deep breath in and just close your eyes down. Now, in a moment, I'm going to ask you to imagine something in your hand. And when I do, I don't want you to go for, say, a remote control or a mobile phone. It's going to be something more organic. So think of a color, think of a shape, put those together to create this thing. And then when you've got something, slowly open your eyes and drop your hand. Now, you could be thinking of anything in the world right now. I obviously don't know what it is. But we're going to play a game of 20 questions. And if you don't know what 20 questions is, it's an algorithm built by the world's greatest minds to determine in 20 questions or less the object or item somebody might be thinking of. But I think that I'm that good at this, I can do it in 3 questions. And one of them I won't even ask you to say out loud, right? So the first question, is this something that you've seen today?
Yeah.
Now look at the time that Lloyd took to think about that. You don't think that answer gives me anything, but it does. It means that it's something that's in Lloyd's house, but not only that, it wouldn't be something that's to hand. So it's not a mobile phone, it's not a remote control, it's not a light, it's not a piece of electrics. I'd say it's not a tool. Second question, this is a second question. Is this something that you've touched today? No, the answer is no to that. Okay, so third question, don't say it, but just think of the color of this thing, but don't say it. Now, what's interesting is Lloyd looked forwards, then looked up. This could be potentially 2 colors. You were just deciding on which one. I'd say you went for the red one, though, right?
Yeah.
Did you go for an apple?
Yeah. Yeah.
20 questions.
What the hell? I still don't know how you got 28 bang on.
I feel violated.
Yeah, I could do
Like-
that. I could do that over and over. Like, there's so many things that I've got, but I thought these might be fun, Craig, because I know that you're about to do an interview with the Grail. People are going to
Well,
think.
what I can do, yeah, I can include this whole
So
section.
what would you have done if it was 16 I was thinking of?
Do you want to do it? Do you want to do it again and see it a second time?
Yeah.
Pick another star sign, another date of birth. You can Google it. You can think of one that you know. It's completely up to you. It doesn't matter. I'll do it slightly differently this time. I'll include a name in there and I'll add a name revelation in the middle.
Okay.
Just so you can
got it. Got it.
So I've just walked up to you. Is there 1 or 2 digits in the day you were born?
2.
So hold both hands out again like this. Now, normally they'd be in front of me and be holding them. So just hold them a bit lower. Imagine this star sign written as a word for me, Lloyd. Think of the amount of letters in the star sign's name.
Yeah.
See it like Leo really largely, and then look at me. There's an R in there, right?
No.
Just, can you see the picture? It might be better. Keep saying it like Pisces, Pisces, Pisces over and over again. Keep saying it. Look at me. See, what's interesting this time is when I first met you, I instantly assumed you were born in May. And I'm glad I didn't rush. You're a June baby and you're a Gemini, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so imagine the first digit in the day in this hand, the second digit in the day in this hand.
Okay.
So just close the first digit down for me and look down and see that second digit. Again, just like last time, you saw it just like 8 really largely there. But imagine it written as a word this time. We'll do it slightly differently. Go to the very first letter in this word for me. Can you think of a day of the week that starts with that letter, Lloyd? I mean, in fact, forget that. Think of the first male name that comes in your head that starts with this letter. Now, don't go for a unisex one. So Tony, Terry, Sam's questionable. Sean would be definitive and strong. Tell me when you've got one.
Yeah.
Now drop your hands. Now, if you can abbreviate the name, abbreviate it. If you can't, it doesn't matter. Think of the amount of letters in this name. So this is like 3 this time. You didn't go for Thomas, did you, Tom?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. People are not going to believe that, but it genuinely is true. What's really interesting for me, do you know you were born on the cusp between 2 days? Do you know that?
No.
No, we're at the 12th or the 13th of June you were born.
12.
Okay, perfect.
What?
Absolutely phenomenal. There's nothing else to say. I want to know where people can pick this up, because this is not a Murphy's item. This is not something that you can go to Penguin Magic or Vanishing Ink or something and get right now. They can only get it from you, right? And it is limited quantities. It's not like going to be available forever. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, the honesty is that I'm just doing one run of them. I'm not like reprinting, repurposing them. Time's the thing that decides the limited nature of this. So it's not like I'm sat and I'm printing 10,000 and putting 10,000 out. Like I said, I normally give retail about 50, but I don't give them till like late on. And right now they're personalized. So if you want one, you can go to Peter Turner Mind, that's MIND, like the mind, at hotmail.co.uk. And yeah, before you say I am still using a Hotmail email address.
Why
And
not?
it worked. But yeah, like I'm not those performances. Look, don't take them as they're just quick off the cuff performances. Nobody knew how we are going to do them. You didn't know how we were going to ask Lloyd. Lloyd didn't know.
Nope,
You didn't know.
no idea.
It's just quick and off the cuff. That's not to say. That's not to say that there are other things that you can do. Like I'll give you another example. If you want to see one live right now, I'm happy to do one like quick one just to show you.
Yeah, yeah, go for it.
Okay, so do you have an object, item, or thing like a coin or a cap or something small that you could use there?
Probably. Yeah, just give me 1 sec.
If you don't, you can just imagine it. But I like I
No, I
said,
don't. I've got a just 1 minute. I'm opening my coin purse. Yeah, there you go. I've got an arcade token.
so you have a coin there. What I want you to do is place
Yeah.
your hands behind your back, and you're going to juggle the coin backwards and forwards between your hands. And you can do this as much as you want or as few times as you want. And then when you're ready, what I want you to do is bring your hands out, but keep them below the camera. So there's no way that I can look at the shape of your hands to determine exactly where the coin is. Now, I need you to listen to me. And if you don't understand anything, just say, I don't understand. And that's all right. You're going to play one of two characters. You can either be a truth teller or a liar. And what that means is if you decide to be a truth teller, you're always going to tell the truth. If you're going to lie, you're always going to lie to any question that I ask you. So get in your head that character. And I'm going to ask you the question. Now, I'd implore you to take about 5 seconds before you answer. So you're not having to think about your answer. You're taking your time to construct your answer and then answer. So I'm going to ask you, Craig, is the coin in your right hand? So take your time.
Yes.
Now, don't respond to this. Keep a poker face. But for everybody else watching this, it's very important that you pay attention to that answer. Because right now, we don't know what hand Craig put in, and we don't know whether he's lying or telling the truth, which makes this a lot more difficult than just being a 50-50. I feel I know where it is now. But just to take this a step further, put your hands behind your back, Craig. You can move it into the other hand if you want. You don't have to. But when you've decided if you want to move it into the other hand, you just bring your hands back out. So staying in that same character that you chose, again, take 5 seconds. Did you move hands?
No.
Just say no again.
No.
Lift your right hand up and open it. Show us that it's in there. Okay, let's do this again, but a little bit quicker. Put it behind your back. You can mix it up as much as you want. Nice and
Yep.
quick. You can stick with the same character. You can change character. It's up to you right now which character it is you play, but I'm going to speak a little bit quicker. You bring your hands out like this when you're ready, and I'll ask you the same questions so that you know it's not your answers that are giving me this, but it's the intonation and the way that you're thinking. Is it in your right hand? So take a few seconds, pause. You can answer in the character that you are now.
Yes.
Okay, now I don't know if you're lying or telling the truth. Put your hands behind the back. You can move it into the other hand if you want. You don't have to. And then you bring your hands out. Now I'm going to ask you, staying in that character, did you move hands? So take your time, process your answer, and then give it to me when you've got it.
No.
Say no again.
No.
Open your right hand, shows it's in there again. Twice in a row. Right, so don't do anything now. Just put your hands behind your back, but don't do anything.
Okay.
So just keep it where it is. I want you to think of a small number for me, Craig.
Okay.
Move it that number of times.
Yep.
Move it that number of times again. Now I'm going to ask
Yep.
you, do you want to keep it in the hand that it's in now, or do you want to move it into the other hand?
I'm moving it into the other hand.
Okay, and then bring both your hands out. Now, don't even worry about lying or telling the truth. Right? You don't need to, but just concentrate on where it is. It's in your left hand. Open your left hand and let's see it again. There it is. I'll tell you what, keep it in that hand for a second. Put it back in that hand. Put your hands back behind your back. Don't do anything until I tell you. Let's change the number. Move it that number of times.
Yep.
Move it that number of times again, just so it's completely random and there's no way that I could know what you're doing, where it is. I know that you picked any number to stress test this. I'm going to ask you, do you want to keep it where it is right now, or do you want to move it one more time?
No, I'll keep it. Keep it where it is.
Okay, so just bring both your hands out like this. And then lift them up like this. You're going to give this away. You're going to tell me where it is, Craig. There it is. Left hand again. Open your left hand and shows it. So I can do this over and over and over and over again. I don't need a device to do it. I can do it through the screen. You can be a liar, a truth teller. You can move it as many times as you want, and I can tell you every single time where it is. And that's a method. It's not a, there's a method to that. And that's a mix of Manos Katsikis', Fraser Parker's, Mark Elsden's. I've got Bryn Reynolds techniques in there that I'm sprinkling in. I can add on to the top of that, like another interesting concept. And I'll just to give you an insight into what this could look like. I'm not going to perform this back to back, but I will give you an insight into it because I think you'll really like this. This is, for me, it's fun. So I'd have this as a prediction on the table. That'd stay there. So if I told you that every single simple drawing starts as a shape, so for example, if you were to take a smiley face, we know it's a circle. We know there's 2 dots for the eyes and a half crescent for the mouth. We know that, right? So obviously don't go for a smiley face or a circle, but take 2 simple shapes and put them together to construct an image in your mind. Just something simple. And then tell me where it is.
Like a house.
A house. So look, so I'd have the house written down. Now this is from the Lloyd Barnes performance earlier, so ignore that, but it's there. It's the house. The house is written down, right? So that'd start. That'd be. I won't reveal that just yet. That wouldn't be revealed just yet. But let me show you what I can do with this, and then you'll understand some of the concepts that are on this set. And this is just me sprinkling it. So now imagine that that's face down. I've got something that's face down there. That can never miss because I'll tell you that there is. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but there's an insurance. That's face down on the table. So now imagine in front of you on the table, Craig, there was red, green, and blue pens. And you can imagine them in any order you want. It really doesn't make a difference to me which order you imagine them in. Right? Reach forwards and pick any color up off the table and in your right hand and take your hands under the table. So what I want you to do for me is think of a small number, but don't tell me what it is, just a small number, and move the pen that number of times between your hands. You done? Move it that number of times again, just so it's completely random.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to ask you, do you want to keep it where it is or do you want to move it into the other hand?
No, keep it where it is.
Okay, so just bring your hands out like this. So you're the only person in the world that knows what color you chose and knows which hand it's in right now. I don't. But listen to me. If it's in your right hand, you're going to be a truth teller. If it's in your left hand, you're going to lie. So right hand, you're going to tell the truth. Left hand, you're going to lie. So I'm going to ask you, what color pen did you pick up?
Blue.
Now, you're the only person that knows if you're telling the truth or not. I don't. But let's imagine that you color the door in on this house that color. And then throw it over your shoulders. Throw the pen over your shoulders. So it's gone. Both hands gone. Okay, so it's gone.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're lying or telling the truth there. I really don't. There's 2 colors left on the table, right? 2 colors left. So I want you to switch characters. If you were lying, you're going to tell the truth. If you're telling the truth, you're going to lie. So you're just changing characters.
Okay.
Pick one of the other colors up. Doesn't matter which color you pick up.
Yep.
Answering that character, what color did you just pick up? I don't know if you're lying or telling the truth.
I picked up black.
Okay. So you've got red. So you've got red and green on the table.
Oh, sorry. I picked up green.
Okay. So now color in the walls in this image. So okay, now throw away that pen. And with whatever's left, you color in the roof. That's it.
Yeah.
So now I can ask you, I know what your image looks like. And I know what your image looks like because I've just forced the outcome. On the table, I've got a prediction of a house with a green roof, blue doors, and red walls. And I'm forcing the outcome of Picasso with no props. So I can have that prediction sat on the table, colored in. You could pick up any pen, move it, and within the same amount of time it'd take me for you to pick some out of a pot or carry a pot around, I can now do a matched Picasso performance. I know that first round you were telling the truth. I knew that you colored the door blue. I knew the second round that you were lying, that when you said to me you'd picked up the green, you'd actually picked up the red and you were painting the walls red. I know that you're painting the roof green, and I can control the outcome of a Picasso style routine. I can now use that same principle of the which hand that works every time. It can't not work. It's mechanical, to now do free will with 3 objects where you've got, imagine Visa Cabaret, you've got 3 banknotes in your pocket. You pull one of them out, you mix it up under the table after peeking at what the denomination is. You choose, and the predictions on the table in advance, you can give that to somebody else. They put it in their pocket. Then you give that note, the other note you pull out to somebody else, and you've predicted exactly where the denomination of each note's going to end up in the end before you've even started. So it's not like you're using Propless techniques where you're farting in the wind and expecting something to happen. These are mechanical techniques. As you saw the witch hand, I can guess every single time. So why would I not just do a quick first round of that and then bolster it onto something else? And I show you how to piggyback and connect these techniques. Whether you want to or not, it doesn't matter. The image of the house might be enough for you to reveal. And you can finish there if you wanted
Incredible.
to. Or you could have them pick up the invisible colors and paint. Well, you could do it with you could bring 3 colors out. So let's say, for example, you think that your audience are going to find it difficult to follow. You can genuinely do it with 3 colors, and you can turn your back and you can say, look, I'm going to be very rude. I'm not going to look, so I don't know what it is that you're doing. Pick one of the pens up off the table, mix it up. Now color the roof in this color, throw the pen away or put it in your pocket. Pick another one up, color the walls in. Now color the door in. Okay, turn back round. So you had a free choice of any image in the world. You chose a house. This is how you've colored it in. And then it matches exactly. Let's say, for example, that they don't pick what you want them to pick. It shows you the out so that you're still doing color match. But what happens is that image, you say to them, keep that image in your mind. You picked a car. We'll come back to that in a second. Now, let's imagine that we had this image and you colored it in. And now you do color match the same way that it's done without the props, or with the props if you want. We know electrics. You finish, you reveal that. And now you have the kicker saying, oh, yeah, and I think that you were going to go for the car. And then you have the bounce back of the insurance that I teach on the set as well. So I'm teaching you how to really take this stuff into the real world, how to use it. If you're sat in a coffee shop and somebody just asks you to perform something like that, that's a bit of a fun game you could play witch hand. If you've got an extra 30 seconds after you've nailed it a couple of times, said, you know what, let's take this a step further. And then did a little bit more with it. Like I've give you all those options. You know, like there's a lot on there. That's what I'll say. There's a lot. Like there's.
Is this, Pete? How much is it?
It's 100. It sounds expensive. It's £150 plus postage.
Not at all. Consider what you've just shown me over the course of the last few years.
On there, let me try to summarize what there is. It opens up with a name divination. There's 2 or 3 name divinations on the set. There's 2 or 3 drawing duplications, free wills on the set, Picasso's on the set, color matches on the set, Visa Cabarets on the set, 4 hours of reading stuff's on the set, a game of readings books on the set, Isabella Starr free full books on the set, full video breakdown of Isabella Starr's on the set. There is Joshua Quinn's book and thoughts on channeling, and a 2-hour interview with Joshua Quinn, or an hour and a half with Joshua Quinn. There's a full DVD set by Jorge Garcia that were given compliments of Alakazam, which is the full DVD. There's a full DVD of Sticky 2.0, not released, by Morgan Strebler. There's two books by Fed and Billick that are on the set. There is a book by Fraser Parker on Witch Hand on the set. There's a book by Monas Katasikis and 2-hour interviews of each of those on the set. There's Rock, Paper, Scissors, my version, and the versions that have come before all melded together on the set. There is fail-safes and insurances and interviews with like Mark Lemon and effects by him. There's deals by Pigcake on there and techniques with Pigcake on there. That, like I say, word revelations, drawing revelations, pin code revelations, safety nets, insurance. There's a lot. It's like fucking hours and hours and hours and hours. So what you're paying for is everything that you could imagine that you'd want as a Propless project. And instead of spending £50 on somebody to give you 1 PDF or £100, this is all of that collated in one place. And so it's a lot. And I know that sounds overwhelming, but if you just want to know a name revelation, you only have to learn the name revelation. Then when you've seen the power of it, come back, learn something else. You know, that I touch on playing cards in there. I talk about the use of playing cards, not having playing cards, what to do when somebody asks you to do something. That, you know, we were talking about the invisible deck and even discussions on the invisible deck. Like, whilst it's not Propless, like theatrically, I think there's something really interesting about the makeup of that routine. You know, so there's a lot. There's a hell of a lot on there.
I agree. Oh, it's just amazing. Absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. And it's available now. People can email you. The link's going to be...
It's going to be available for a short space of time, a short period, because I have Blackpool Magic Convention coming up. So once Blackpool...
Well, that was going to be my last question to you, which is, I know that you've never. It baffles me that you've never lectured at Blackpool, but you've never lectured at Blackpool. You're lecturing for the first time. I know a lot of people that have made the decision to come to Blackpool when they found out that you were going to be there. So I mean, people are excited
I
about.
still don't know what I'm going to talk about yet. That's the I've got 6 weeks. I want to make it special, so that's not me being unprepared. What it is that I just wanted to give the time that I needed to dedicate to the Grail, and then I blocked out the next 6 weeks to decide. And look, I could walk into that room tomorrow, and there's enough stuff I could lecture on, so it's not like being unprepared. But I just want to make sure it's right. I'm trying to, at the minute, figure out. I don't really know how to use like presentations and PowerPoints, and it's just not something that I've done. But I'm trying to work that out. If I can't work that out, then we'll sit and it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting. I've always wanted to do it. Like, I think it's just going to be one of those things where, for me, it's another tick off in my book. Like, it sounds weird to say that I've waited since I were younger to do something like that, and in Blackpool of all places. But yeah, I've really wanted to do it for a long time, and I can't wait to see how it goes. I'm hoping people who are watching this turn up, and if you just want to ask me questions, look, I could sit and take Q&As from the audience and just perform what you ask me. If I really got desperate for material, I won't, but I'm saying I could. But if you want to come, please, like, spend some time. I'll be there, I hang out. I don't know what days I'm doing. I can't remember. I think I'm doing more than one lecture, which is really weird. Maybe.
I think they are planning more than one lecture. So many people are coming now. I think they try to double up on the lectures for the popular ones. So.
Oh well, I'm glad to think they might be popular. Nobody might turn up. We might get there. There might be 3 people.
Very much doubt it, Pete. I very much doubt it. And what else have you got coming up? Before we wrap this whole thing up, anything else we should be looking forward to in the future? I know that you are continuing to work with Stephen. I don't know what to call him these days. I know you're continuing to work with Stephen Frayne on upcoming projects. Is there anything else we're going to be needing to look out for?
So I've been out in the States, so I don't really want to say too much, because it's one of these where I've been in this position a lot of times, and I think people think that once you get told that you've got opportunities to be doing things like television shows, that it's a guarantee, and it's not. It's like the amount of times things hit the cutting room floor, it's unbelievable. And what will happen is that you'll start doing something before Thanksgiving or in England, Christmas. Then by the time you come back in the new year, the entire production team's changed round, and the person that had you on their desk to take to a commissioner has gone. So all that last few months that you just spent is a waste of time. But I've been out in America quite a bit. I've been out in Hollywood, and I've been made some very interesting offers that I'm tempted to take. Tempted to take, and it's in the biggest place in the world, but with the biggest companies, which is mad to think that I'm getting an audience with these rooms of people. So yeah, the answer to that question is maybe that. I definitely want to do my lifestyle channel on YouTube. I want to do that. I don't think there's really much else. Like, just have a quiet life. I just don't want to. I want to find time to just do nothing. Yesterday were great. Yesterday were really good. I managed to have. It's the first day off that I've had in forever. And do you know what? So I'm going to sound like I was depressed. I just stayed in bed. I just stayed in bed. I just put I still did a bit of writing, but I just stayed in bed, and I just sat and I just mindlessly watched TV and just thought, wow, what a year it's been. And that were it. That were all I could muster up yesterday. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know.
You know what? I can relate to that. There's some days that I just want to just not get up. It's just...
Oh, I feel it now. I think my afternoon's going to be, because I'm dieting now from now till Blackpool. That's another thing as well. Like, over the Christmas period, I've gone a little bit too much with foods and other things, and so I have to show some restraint, and that's the hardest bit, because I don't have any vices. Like, I don't smoke. I know at Blackpool people see me having a drink, but that's my holiday is Blackpool. It won't be this year because I'm working it. But I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't take drugs. So because of those things, that, like, my vices when it is food. And that's why some years you'll see me I'm up, and some years you'll see me I'm vastly down. Like, food's always been that thing for me. Like, oh, stop, I'll have a chocolate bar, a packet of crisps, this. So I'm cutting that out. The next 6 weeks are going to be full on walking, working out, doing things, and then hopefully when I come to Blackpool, I won't have this little rounded face. It'll be nice and slimmed in, slimmed in for Blackpool.
You look great, man. You look so good. Genuinely,
Well,
you're
I'm
really good.
still over Christmas. I put on about 2 stone, so it's like I can lose weight and gain weight so quickly. But that's another thing that I think I might document. Like I don't think it'll be of interest to people, but there's a lot of performers that feel like I can't put down the chocolate, I can't put down this, I stress eat, and I'm the same. You know, like I treat it like I treat food is a vice for me. So maybe film my diet and film me talking about my diet and stuff. Maybe it'll help somebody.
That'd be a good idea. I think a lot of people would like that.
Well, maybe it'd just be. I know what'd happen. People would just be stripping off screenshots to send to people. That'd be what it is. You can't do anything that like you can't have any other type of channel because the magic community love to screenshot it and put it on these magic meme pages. But I love that because it's one extra person who didn't know who you were before now knowing.
Exactly.
Do you know what I
Exactly.
mean? But it's a bit of fun. But yeah, I look forward to seeing you at Blackpool. I might see you before then.
You'll probably see me before. I know we've got some stuff
Oh,
planned, but Pete, this has been an amazing interview. Thank you so much. Everybody that's watched this, leave a comment down below. Let Pete know how awesome this was, because it was. I can't tell you, like, go back and watch that performance again to me and Lloyd. I was blown away. And then it's limited time. We're not just saying that. This isn't a FOMO thing. It's gonna go, and you're gonna miss out. So if you do want to treat yourself to something, I'm gonna get one. Then just the email address is down there. Go email Pete before it's too late, because it could very well be too late. And don't forget, Pete, like I said, will be at Blackpool. So make sure that you book your tickets early to go and see Pete, because it's going to be sold out. Is why he's doing more than one lecture. But Pete, one more time, thank you so much for coming on the channel. Really appreciate it. You're the man.
Thank you for having
Told you a
me.
million
Thank you for
times how much I love you to bits, buddy. You are brilliant and just so good, just so good. Yeah, you're phenomenal, guys. Leave a comment down below, and we will see you again soon. I'm Craig. This is Pete Turner, and we'll see you
Thank you,
again soon
guys.
on TV.